Too many tanks on the ground. Too many tanks on the ground. Y'all ain't want my shit. Too many. I can tell that you wanna see me lose in control at the same time losing my soul. Tryna move on the low, but the stick can't escape from the view on the scope. If you move, you will go. When the tanks on the ground, better move out the road. Gotta flow like a hookah lounge, who won't smoke? If you choose to provoke, I might loosen the rope enough not to leave a bruise on your throat. The movement's strong, strong enough to make a bunch of grown men spray hatred like cologne. We got too much out here going on in the past. You traveling Rocky Sylvester alone. When you and I leave it alone, Michael B. Jordan trying to get a creed of your own. Just leave me alone. How you gonna talk like a boss? You don't even own the keys to your home. You don't wanna see me in the zone. Blood of a king in my veins, I belong on the throne with a queen of my own. Infatuated by the muscle tone, I'm about to love squeeze in my arm. If we in the war with the other side, why you not taking shots at the other guy? Let me summarize, you advertise black on black crime and antagonize. When I analyze it with my higher mind, that means my Virgo nature with the fire sign. I can see it clearly through my third eye, point of view higher than the birds fly. No code of honor like the summer ride, they just target practice for me bullseye. You a clout chaser working full time, and your paradigm is a narrow mind. All the angels in heaven listen when I'm sharing mine. I'm giving back to the culture. I'm in the back of the Rover. Why you at home with your back on the sofa? I'm having a moment. Your childish behavior, I'm sorry, I cannot condone it. The double-edged sword that I'm swinging, sharp enough to cut your bones through your garment. Yo, Rock Nation trying to deal with the NFL recently, that's a bonus. And I just want to know what percentage you getting paid off for your performance. Hold up, Jay-Z, he don't even know you. Nope. Trademark name who belong to. 6-figure check, no console. Come to a point where you can't undo what you misconstrue. Every day you attack Jesus, animated like Black Jesus. For that reason, he's still undefeated like Gorilla Hebrew from last season. The war machine running circles around our competition like track season. It's hard for you to be a stand-up guy, cause in the spirit world, your back leaning. I'm sick with it, got me throwing up. PowerPoint ready, they ain't showing up. No information, just inflammation. Amazon book sales going up. But I wouldn't buy it, even if I was on a diet and had a little money on the side. I wouldn't try it, even if my life was on the line and they pointed at my body with a 9. Why should I tell them a whole bunch of lies just for them to join my side? El Shaddai, all praise to the Most High. If the Spirit walking with me, I'm fine. You cannot make a decision. I can see that you're afraid of the system. I can tell you have no faith in your vision. You rather sit back and hate on religion. I bet you won't walk in the government building and tell them that you want to interview. Tell them that your name is Nimrod and you demand justice and call them a criminal. Why don't they literature right there in front of them? I guarantee you gon' make the news. At least you be finally famous. Look at the camera like, mama, I made it. Have you ever stood in front of the very personification of hatred? I have on many occasions. The devil got multiple faces. Look at the swing of the pendulum. Look at the shape of the pentagon. Walk in the power of Pentecost. Show up and mess with your pentagram. Tanks on the ground, man. Too many tanks on the ground.
Man, Shabbat Shalom, family. I hope you've had a blessed Shabbat this evening. Today,
Shalom.
Man, all praises to the Most High, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To our God, Yahweh, for his son, for his work that he's done. Yahweh Shah, Yahushua, for allowing us to see another day. Bring before you another lesson. I see you, Madan. I see you, Nasi. Bring you in. Let me stop sharing my screen. And tonight, what we're going to do, family, is we're going to be coming to you. We're going to be talking about just the preliminary, I'll say, on the lesson that Sar Gideon Israel is going to be bringing and sharing with us on tomorrow evening about the science of Black Israelites in Africa. And he's going to be bringing out some powerful information, but we're just going to give you a little teaser of what we're going to be sharing this evening. And so get your pens and your pads ready. We're going to be showing some sources. We're going to have some pertinent discussions. And this is a topic that we see that is ever before Israel as a people. It's important that we understand this type of information, especially during this day and time. It's going to be very important that we know some of what our origins are. We're going to be dealing with those things. We're going to be talking about various topics in regards to documented and historical evidences of the Black Israelites in Africa. We have a lot of people that say, there were no such thing as Black Israelites, or there were no Israelites in Africa pre-colonial times. But we're going to get into that. It's very important, the time frame that we're talking about, especially pre-colonial times. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the brothers to introduce themselves as we go around the panel, and then I'm going to get into the information that I have prepared, and then you brothers feel free to speak freely to the information. So we're going to start out with Sar Gideon Israel. Shalom, Mark.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. This the General Sar Gideon. Shout out to Brother the Tanks on the Ground, the Elder Yarah, Commander General, Brother Yahukanan, Madan Klein. And just here to, kick it. When y'all see that Sar, that's just a title that means General, Commander, Chief. So we got tanks here, so that's how we coming. So shalom to everybody.
Shalom, shalom. Claim your inheritance. Nazi Devar.
The holy claim.
The holy claim.
You're either gonna claim your inheritance, or you're gonna get rolled smooth over. Get out the road. You heard the song.
Come on, all praises. Madan Kemet, Nazi Madan. What's going on with your family? Shalom. Madan, are you in the building, family? I see you on the panel. Turn your mic on, brother. We can't hear you if you're talking. If not, we're going to go to our commanding captain. Yahukanan is in the building. Shout out to you, family. Powerful brother. In the scriptures and the word.
Yo, what up? What up to the Mishpapa? I'm just ready to get it in. Whatever input I can give, whatever insight, here to support and give whatever insight I can. Shalom.
Shalom, family. Appreciate you. Thanks on the ground. I love seeing you brothers in the building this evening. Man, so we just going to get it in to share. We got some other brothers that's going to be coming and joining us from the War Machine, Yahweh War Machine. And let's get into this information. When Nazim Don gets available, then we'll let him get it in as well. We see he's on the panel. So let me share my screen. Let's get into it. Let's get into it, family. All right. You brothers let me know if you can see my screen.
Shalom to y'all, brothers. Yeah, I can see it. I had stepped away if y'all spoke, so let me say shalom. But yeah, I can see it, Yarah.
All right, shalom, family. Shalom, family. Go ahead, Nazim Madan. Go ahead, introduce yourself, family.
Shalom, shalom. It's your homie Madan Komet, Tanks on the Ground, your highway war machine. Say peace and blessings to anybody that's listening. Peace to the brothers on the panel, man. Let's get it.
I don't got something to do right now. What is Nathan doing? I'm finna go. I got this show I'm doing. I'm gonna be about 2 hours, maybe an hour. So I'm gonna be about an hour. So let's share this. Let's get into this information a little bit. All right. So we're talking about reclaiming Africa. Let me stop right here. Reclaiming Africa. And let me close that out. And the African Hebrews in pre-colonial Africa. And that's very important that we bring that out. We're talking about the Hebrews in pre-colonial Africa. Because you have a lot of people say, oh, all you're talking about is converts after the conquest of Spain, or converts after the Catholics and the Catholicism and the papal bulls have been the edicts have been rolled out. Then you start to see conversions, people being converted to Judaism as missionaries are coming in. during post-colonial era, and that you don't see any evidence really of any Israelites or Black Israelites. Let me make perfectly clear: Black Israelites in Africa during pre-colonial times, before any missionary work has began or started. And so we're going to go through some of this information, and I'm just going to go through each slide and just kind of give you brothers a feel about the information we're sharing here. The title is Reclaiming Africa, the African Origins of the Afro-Judeo Messianic Movement. The reason why I use the term Afro-Judeo Messianic Movement is because we have to understand that we're talking about a melanated people here, right? That carry with them Judeo customs as well as Messianic beliefs with them as well into Africa pre-colonial times. Going back at least, starting what we're talking about, at least from the 1st century and beyond. And so with that presence in Africa, especially after the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, we know that we have sources that talk about the influx of Israelites fleeing from the Romans, from Titus in 70 AD, as he comes into Jerusalem, and they flee into Africa. In some accounts, hundreds of thousands, if not close to 1 million, flow into Africa. And what we want to know and understand is, where did those people go? Who were those people? Where did they settle? Right? How long have they been there? And so we want to sort of bring these things out because we have a lot of people that really wants to come up against this type of information, especially those Garfield, not so much as even Garfield anymore, because I see he's changing his stance a little bit, but still we have to place it at his feet. Also with people like, MBK, Rob One, they talk about this an awful lot. There was no Black Israelite presence pre-colonial time in Africa. Especially in the South Africa and West Africa. So we're going to get into some of this information. And so let me go through it a little bit here. You brothers let me know too if my sound is not good, if it goes out. So we're talking about here, this is just a quote that I found very interesting from the late Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, when he talks the modern day Imhotep, when he capsulizes the dire attempt by the Aryan right race to whitewash ancient Egypt as follows. He says, mankind trying to destroy the Black African genesis of ancient Egypt is like trying to drown a fish in the ocean. The reason why I use this statement is because we not only see this in ancient Kemet, but we also see this with the Afro-Judeo Messianic movement, especially from the 1st century. We start to see this whitewashing occur. And so even when we look at old paintings about the siege of Jerusalem and different things like that, we don't see African faces, or we don't see dark melanated faces. It's all painted in, European and Roman features, in Roman garb, different things like that. Although we're talking about Hellenized, Black Hellenized Jews or Israelites at the time, we're still not seeing those images portrayed properly. And so that's why I thought that that quote from Dr. Diop was important. But let's get into it. And so it's history hides its secrets, but we want to know. We are people who they are, what mysteries stick behind so many cultures and convictions, habits and hopes. It is difficult to find, and even more difficult to interpret, the ages-old traces of Hebrew groups of people in Africa. However, they are there. Some groups claim a Hebrew descent. Others who are like them have even lost notice of it. But what can we discover of the origin and itinerary of groups with Hebrew roots? What hidden secrets can be revealed? And so this is what our lesson is really going to go into. We really want to attack these questions. And so let's continue. For this debate, or should I say teacher, it says our interest turns in the first place to the people that we know as the Ethiopian Jews and related tribes. I believe General Gideon is really going to touch on that, I believe, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, with the information that he has. We're going to talk about these things, and we're going to touch on them briefly here. And this is just a preliminary to the teaching in the lesson that he's going to bring out tomorrow. And so I thought about sort of presenting my information while, after, his information, but I don't want to convolute my with his. I just want the brother just to rock out because I know he has some powerful information. So we're just doing this preliminary here, leading up to the topic that he's going to be bringing out tomorrow. So particularly a large tribe living in the Ivory Coast in Liberia and Guinea, the tribe of Dan. I want to know who they are. We all want to know who they are. I try to reconstruct their past. I use the word Hebrew, but others prefer the description Jew. Hebrew is more general. So you'll see that oftentimes. And the reason why I put this in here, because you'll see oftentimes that the historians, when they're writing, sometimes they use the word Hebrew, or they'll use the word Jew, but they're referring to the same group of people. They're referring to the same group of people. So as we're going through this lesson, understand that we're going to be using these terms interchangeably according to the historians, how they recorded it. So again, so a Jew has a certain set of beliefs and values that are not automatically shared by those with an Israelite or Hebrew origin. And so I added that so we can understand that there is a difference, though, when we talk about Jews or Judaism. We don't practice Judaism, and we don't see the Israelites that are in Africa pre-colonial time. We're not looking for the practices of quote unquote Judaism, but we're looking for customs that we know our Israelite ancestors practice during that time in Israel and before that. And so we're going to make these distinctions clear as we move throughout this information. So again, some of those African Hebrews and groups with Hebrew traits may have lost their faith in culture since long, but nevertheless, their history makes us curious. And we're going to see that where many historians say, look, we can identify these people as the Hebrew Israelites, these melanated, these black people, these Negroes, or sometimes they're not referred to as Negroes, but they're referred to a black African or just an African people who have residue of Israelite practices. But because they've not been in the land for so long, and generations, these people have populated and built communities in Africa. Some of the our Israelite ancestral practices have been lost in translations, so to speak. But they're poignant enough among many historians to be able to identify them, not as those who are native to the land of Africa, but for those or indigenous to the land of Africa, but those who practice ancient Israelite culture. And so, which stands out from many African indigenous tribal cultures. And so this is how they're able to make these determinations. So let's go to this right here. Hebrews in Africa, their history is mainly forgotten. They are who were during hundreds of years threatened and influenced by the majority of groups that surrounded them. Who are they and what can we learn from their existence, faith, and history? So let's continue. So we're going to be talking about reclaiming Africa. So let's get into some of this situation. Let me see. Anyone of you arcs got your sword out real quick?
I got mine close by. I can pull it. Let me see.
Okay. Can you get Psalm 16? 68 and 31. I want you to read it for me from the scripture. Read Psalm 68 and 31.
You said Psalm 68 and 31.
Yes, 68 and 31.
All right.
Hey, Moore said, my bad. Moore said he's in the back room. I guess
Okay.
get off.
Hold on 1 second. Let me get him in. Yep, I see. I'm glad you brothers are in. Yeah. And I see Gideon in too. All you brothers are back in. Shalom, family.
Shalom, fam.
Shalom, fam.
Shalom, Orthodox. Shalom, King.
Shalom, family. So
Yeah, you know I had to show for this topic.
yeah. So we just going in a little bit, man, because I know me and Moore chopped it up a little bit about this other day. He got some pertinent information, man, some fantastic information. And we're just doing this as a preliminary to what General Gideon is going to be bringing out tomorrow. So Madon, you got Psalm 68, Tehillim 68, 31?
Yeah, I got it. This is from the Zondervan NIV. Just to let
All
brothers know. Psalm 68:31 says, "Envoys will come from Egypt. Cush will submit herself to God." Keep going.
So
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, finish. Go ahead and keep reading. I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay, let me reread it. Envoys will come from Egypt. Cush will submit herself to God. Sing to God, O kingdoms of the earth. Sing praise the Lord. To him who rides the ancient skies above, who thunders with mighty voice, proclaim the power of God, whose majesty is over Israel, whose power is in the skies. You are awesome, O God, in your sanctuary. The God of Israel give power and strength to his people. Praise be to God.
All right, all praise to the Most High. So again, what we see here is we see a strong African presence, right? It's talking about Cush here, and it talks about how Cush shall reach out his arms to the Most High, right? And so we even see that the early church even stood upon these promises, right? For they consider Cush to be a metaphor for the Gentile bride of Christ, right? And so the Psalms predicted that one day people would what? Recognize the spirituality of the Cushites and declare that they had been born anew in what? In Zion, right? Isaiah foretold that God would bring forth a remnant from Cush. That's Isaiah 11. I believe it's Isaiah 11:11. Can you get that, Madonna? I'm gonna keep reading. Isaiah 11:11. It says, "And the redeemed
Isaiah
people."
11.
Yeah, Isaiah 11. I believe it's Isaiah 11:11.
Okay, you want me to get that?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I'm there if you need it.
Oh, go ahead, Mo, if you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Isaiah 11:11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea.
So we see that the Most High here is saying that he's going to reach out his hand again, and he's going to gather upon him a remnant from where? From Cush. From Cush. So we clearly see that the Most High has not forgotten about Africa, or the land of Africa, or the people of Africa, or the Cushite. So we clearly see here that oftentimes we hear about how the Bible is against Africa. It doesn't support Africa. It hates Africa. The God of the Bible hates Africa. But we clearly see here, just in these few verses alone, that that's the furthest thing from the truth. That the Most High definitely expresses his love and his affinity for the Cushites. Somebody get me, I believe Zephaniah 3:10. And I'm going to read this. It says, Zephaniah proclaimed that from beyond the rivers of Cush, God's people should bring offerings. Amos even expresses God's concern for Cush. Are you not like the Cushites to me, O people of Israel, said Yahweh. So somebody read for me Zephaniah 3 and 10, if you can.
Yeah, I got you right now, Elder. So it says, Zephaniah 3 and 10, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering.
Come on. So we see it says from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. And beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, we clearly see that puts us right in Africa. But when we're talking about beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that takes us to what we would understand to be the land of the Cushites, or Cush. And if I'm not mistaken, that takes us down into the land where most of us know as Nubia, if I'm correct on that. Let's go to the next slide. Biblical scholars are
Did Yarah cut out, or is that my mic?
I was just about to ask the same thing. I was checking my Wi-Fi. Yarah, if you can hear me. Yarah, if you can hear me, you went out, King. I was trying to check my Wi-Fi.
So let me see if I can read his screen right. I know he dropped all the way. He's probably about to jump back in. But yeah, that's an interesting concept to start off with and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people like to keep this concept of where the Israelites went and where they're getting called from, to like a real local kind of situation, or just from certain parts of the world and whatnot, and don't want to look at other parts of the world and whatnot. Like I was talking to the Elder the other night and went out and breaking on the kid. You know that there's Israelites in Somalia. You know what I'm saying? He was like, oh word. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of that whole Kush bit. You know what I'm saying? My Somali homies, shout out to them. You know what I'm saying? They're always big about repping me and the Kushites and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And I had to find out. I found out from them that there was Somali Jews and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Look, I was like, yo, okay, I didn't even know about that.
Well, see, the thing that got to be put in proper context is that, so when we look at the Ashkenazi Jew, they come from the Khazar kingdom, which had about anywhere from 50 to 100,000 people, if I'm not mistaken. So from that 100,000 people, we get the 7 to 9 million Ashkenazi Jews we have today. So the thing that confuses me about the information that they're putting out, they don't translate that to not only the original stock of the Israelites, which are sub-Saharan Negro type, but they don't give that same type of allowance or reveal that information that you had places where you had Jews in Africa with communities of 50,000. You had some with 120,000. You had some with, 10,000 and smaller than that. So when you have all of these numbers, how come those numbers don't translate into a sizable population of people today the same way that the Ashkenazi's numbers in the 10th century translate to 7 million Ashkenazi Jews today? So what I do when I speak to people is, I'm not saying that everybody in Africa or everybody in America that's a descendant of slaves are Israelites. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they had a sizable amount of Israelites among other nations and other kingdoms in West Africa. So with that being said, things must be put into their proper context, because a lot of people like to come and say, we're trying to, make everybody Jews, and then they, dragged it into saying Jews are white. But that's not what I'm saying at all. You had Carthage, you had, several other nations from ancient time, the Numidians, that filtered down into the sub-Saharan region. So that's what got to be put into its proper context.
Yeah, not even just from there. Like, so, like, starting from that Kush area is a real big understanding and whatnot. Because like that's like the first areas that people were like retreating into. You know what I'm saying? Like even the people in Ethiopia, like, yeah, the Israelites came down like 2 or 3 different times. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It was successive
good.
waves.
Right.
There's even a source that talks about so-called indigenous Jews or Israelites that were in the Sig Valley.
Can you brothers hear me? Okay.
There you go. Shalom.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it talks about them fighting. It talks about them fighting with the newly arrived Christianized Jews in that area of North Africa. So yeah, it was different waves at different times.
Say that term. Say that term one more time. You say Christianized Jews.
Christianized Jews.
Break that one down right quick.
Oh yeah, man. This is like, like we say, man, we're gonna touch on it all. Like and from what I see, one of the epicenters of that happening was in Ethiopia, specifically Axum, where you get that Christianized Jew coming into reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, go ahead, Yarah.
Yarah, can you hear us?
I think he must there you go.
Yeah, I'm back. I thought you were going. Okay.
I just wanted to make that quick little comment, but the floor is yours, Aki.
Okay. So I'm gonna get back into it. Let me shout out. Come on in, KOT. We got room for you, Ak. Chemo Ben Israel, Shalom family. Azov Jones again, Shalom family. Azov Jones says beyond the river is referring to Hebrews, to the Hebrews from beyond the river, and I can agree with that as well. We see Nigga in the building, so shalom to the people, man. Joseph Johnson, what's good, God? What's good with your family? So shalom. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about the Black Israelite presence in Africa, and so let me get back into it again. Let me share my screen.
Shalom, family. Shalom.
Shalom. General Yashar, Commander General Yashar is in the building.
Shalom.
Yeah, and you brothers feel free to go in, man. So
Shalom, King.
Yeah. If y'all got any questions or anything, let's break it down.
Well, our presence, I just want to say this before Elder started getting back into the information. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure exactly what was said, what was touched on, I did come back in a little late because I'm on vacation with the fam. But what I want to say is this, right? When you look at the different languages, right? The different dialects, you see a certain Shemitic, as they say, Semitic type of feel to that. And when you understand the Shemitic language, that's actually intertwined with what I would consider to be the Hamitic or the Kemetic language, right? The collective languages of his children's tribes, right? I don't know why we don't like to talk about that more often. If we did, I believe that we would actually open up the doors for more conversations with our relatives actually in the land. You understand? When we use terms like Nigerian, Ethiopian, right? Yes, they relate, but they will relate more if we actually did the work to find out what our ancient ancestors called their ancient ancestors, right? Mind you, they still home. So they still have some type of understanding of the communication that was taking place between the two nations of people. You know what I mean? So I would just say this, fam. I'm not having no sources at this moment while I'm speaking, but I would just say, check into the languages in
the similarities of the Shemitic and the Kemetic languages, right? You have to do that work for yourself so that you can get an understanding, because it's a lot of brothers that's not doing it. And if they are doing it because they have a certain particular type of agenda, right, they're not going to put that information out. They're going to leave it for people like me and you to actually go out and search for it, when they can make it easy for us to just give it to us, and then we can, you know, build from there. But at the same time, the work that we have to put in is so sweet. It's so sweet. So with that being said, I turn it back over to the elder. Shalom, family.
Shalom, shalom. So thank you, Commander General Yashar, for that information, man, and the wisdom. So let's continue here, man. Again, on the screen, Africa in the Old Testament, right? We read in Genesis, a Bereshit, that one of the rivers of Eden ran around the whole land of Cush. And as David Tuesday Adama just told us, we can sometimes interchange Cush with our understanding of the land of Africa. So it talks about the river that runs around the whole land of Cush or Africa, and another encircled the land of Havilah that yielded gold and onyx and Bethlehem. That's Genesis chapter 2, verse 10 through 13. These products were found in antiquity, principally in the area known as what? As the Sudan. If the Tigris and Euphrates rivers are located in Babylonia, then there is good reason to believe that some of Eden lay in Africa. We are now told that the oldest human remains may also be traced to Africa. Hagar, the Egyptian concubine of Abraham, may well have derived her ancestry from south of Egypt, and she alone of all the Bible characters gives God a name. Genesis chapter 16, verse 13. Can somebody get that for me real quick? Genesis chapter 16 and 13, because I want to read the name that Hagar is recorded in giving honor to the Most High. What she says there. We'll talk about that just really briefly. It's Genesis chapter 16, verse 13.
Yeah, I got that. So Genesis 16, 13. And she called the name of the Lord, YHWH, that spake unto her, Thou God seest me. For she said, Have I also here looked after him that seeth me?
Come. And so that name there, here, let me look that up here, because I don't have it here. It should be the Lord that saves me.
El Rohi.
You said?
El Rohi.
Yeah, Rohi.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. So that is the first time we see that, or that attribution or that name of the Most High in Scripture. It's spoken by Hagar, who we claim, who we understand to have had Cushitic or African ancestry. And she calls him, what is it? Yahweh Rohi. That's R-O-H-I, correct?
What was that?
I said it's R-O-H-I, correct? Rohi.
Yeah, or O-R-O apostrophe I-Y, etc.
I-Y. Come.
Depends on which one you got.
So this is the first time we hear that name for the Most High in scriptures given by Hagar. And that's two important factors here. Not the fact simply this because she's of African ancestry, but because also she's not an Israelite. Right? She couldn't have been an Israelite. So and also she's a woman. So this is a very important understanding here, that Hagar was not just someone who was a concubine and was just simply kicked out, because she, Sarah became jealous or whatever, or whatever that might be, and she was just shipped on off. This was not a woman who despised the Most High. She clearly gives him honor, and praise here in Genesis chapter
Con.
16 and 13. And being of African ancestry, not of the same blood of Abraham or Sarah. So these things are important to understanding that the Most High in the scriptures has never been and is not adverse to the people or the indigenous people of the land of Africa. That's important. This is very important. We have to understand that. So when people try to say, the God of the Bible hates Africa, well, we clearly see that's not what the biblical narrative gives us. So let me go to the next slide. Let's see what we got here. It says Africa in the Old Testament. Oldest Homo sapiens bones ever found shape foundations of human history. And this is what I was talking about, that we understand that even talking about the garden and understanding these different types of things, we understand if we follow the narrative, the creation narrative as according to the scriptures, and we talked about the Garden of Eden and its boundaries and its presence in the land of Africa. We clearly see here, this is where we see the beginnings of man. It's definitely in Africa, in these areas, right?
Con.
Just as we read where the garden, was a portion of the garden was set up, was constructed in these areas. And so we talk about that, and the science agrees with us for the most part. It says the idea that modern humans evolved in East Africa 200 years ago challenged extraordinary discovery of what? 300,000-year-old remains in Moroccan mines. You see what I'm saying? So we're not just talking about just in Ethiopia or in Northern, we're talking about in the land of Africa. In the land of Africa. So we have to get an understanding here of and understand. Just let me go down here and just read this here. It says fossils recovered from an old mine on a desolate mountain in Morocco have rocked one of the most enduring foundations of the human story, that Homo sapiens arose in a cradle of humankind in East Africa 200,000 years ago. Unearthed the bones of at least 5 people at Jabal el-Hadar, a former barite mine, 100 kilometers west of Marrakesh, in excavations that lasted years. They knew the remains were old, but were stunned when dating tests revealed that a tooth and stone tools found with the bones were about what? 300,000 years old. So what we're saying is that we see that the oldest remains that we can find, that we know according to this article, and this was published in 2017, puts the closest understanding of the origin of man in Africa. And the Bible clearly gives us that understanding with the garden and the rivers that surrounded it. So let's go even a little bit further, right? And I wanted to show this here. So when they're talking about the garden and those rivers, can you guys see this map pretty good?
Hold on, let me check it out.
Yeah, let me know if you guys can see the map pretty good.
Yeah, nah, it's good. I zoom in. The words aren't too clear, but yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. How's that?
Yeah,
Okay. So here, this is what we're talking about. The land of Eden, the garden, Genesis chapter 2, the garden eastward, right? Became the river heads, the land of Cush. We see right here. This is the land of Cush, right? And we're following these green lines here. The land of Havilah. We see Lebanon and Tyre. Telassar right here is the people of Eden and Telassar. That's 2 Kings verse 19, Isaiah 37. We see here also, this is the same map over here. I just put this here so I can make the key bigger if I needed to. But we see what the scripture is talking about here, right? We see the lay of the land here. This is talking about Africa, people. Land. You see what I'm saying? Here, Genesis chapter 15 and 18, right here, the river of Egypt. So this is what was considered here, the land of Eden, right? Or the garden. You clearly see here in this key here, it talks about the garden eastward. Became 4 riverheads. And you see right here, where is it? And encapsulates parts of what? The land of Cush. See, we see the Gihon here. You can see it even more in this area on this side of the map over here. So this is the area clearly that the scripture is talking about. It's even talked about how he will be pulling, we read earlier, how he would be gathering his people from not just Cush, but from Assyria. You see, these lands they're all next to each other. These are common lands next to each other. So it would make more sense to understand that these people were living in close proximity together, that they would be in close proximity. And so that the Israelites would be in these lands, in these surrounding lands. Right? So let me go a little bit further. Let me see if I can bring this down a little bit so I can read it for you, family. Let me see. Right? Africa in the Old Testament. Moses' Cushite wife aroused a bit of jealousy of her sister Miriam. That's Numbers 12, 11 through 16. Amusingly, Miriam, who resents her black sister-in-law, becomes white with leprosy. Now, when we say her black sister-in-law, we're talking about of the Cushite because she's darker in her complexion. Darker in her complexion. With leprosy until she mends her ways. If this Cushite wife was Zipporah, then Moses' father-in-law is Jethro, the priest, who instituted the judicial and administrative and sacrificial patterns of Israel. And we can read that in Exodus chapter 18, verses 1 through 27. It says, he and his family had received the exile of Moses during Moses' 40 years as a shepherd on the backside of the desert, a lot of people say, or in the Sinai. Zipporah had understood the importance of circumcision and performed the ritual on their sons. Exodus 18, 1 through 27. Because when we read in here, we read how Zipporah turns to Moses because the Most High says he looks to kill Moses. Because why? Because Moses has not followed through on what the Most High told him to do. And so Zipporah performs properly, I might add, the circumcision. And then she throws the foreskin at the feet of Moses, of her son, and throws the foreskin at the feet of Moses. And then she says, you have made me a bloody bride. Right? So even if the Cushite wife refers to a second spouse, then Moses also looks to his new father-in-law for guidance and direction. And that's in Numbers chapter 10, 29 through 37 through 32. And Judges 1, verse through 16. Let me go a little bit further, family. Y'all feel free to jump in anytime y'all ready. I'm gonna just go through this. Let's get into some of what we understand, some of what researchers outside extra biblical sources talk about the Black Israelite presence in Africa. Let's look at some extra biblical sources now, right? Let's deal with that. This is the historical traveler's book that was written by Conrad Maltby-Brun and James Gates Percival. And basically what they did was they documented their travels. These were two French explorers. They documented their travels in Africa, right? And so this is what this is what they wrote: a system of universal geography, or a description of all the parts of the world on a new plan, according to the great natural divisions of the globe. Okay, accompanied with analytical, synoptical, and elementary tables. And this was by Conrad Malte Brun. This is from a series called The Forgotten Books, right? And so let's see what they say in this book. Two French travelers from the 18th century, Conrad Malte Brun and James Gates Percival, traveled around Africa during the time of the slave trade and documented the tribes in Africa. While traveling through the kingdom of Loango, which is present-day Congo, they came across what? Black Jews. In their book, A System of Universal Geography, what I just read, all the parts of the world, this is what they write. Let's go to the next slide. This is what they write. The kingdom of Loango contains black Jews scattered throughout the country. They are despised by the Negroes, who do not even deign to eat with them. They are occupied in trade and keep the Sabbath so strictly that they do not even converse on that day. They have a separate burying ground very far from any habitation. The tombs are constructed with masonry and ornamented with Hebrew inscriptions. Now, this is extra biblical sources confirming the black Hebrew Israelites or black Jews. Remember, we talked about that earlier, how we'll see that oftentimes they use Jews interchangeably with Hebrews or Israelites in Africa. And so they clearly say they not only observe their customs, them observing the Shabbat, but they also observe what? Hebrew writing. This is during the slave trade that they observed this, during the time of the slave trade in Africa, in Luango.
Can I be heard?
Absolutely.
So
I can hear you.
What you're not saying the stuff that's in the Bible is true or not. That's not your argument. Your argument is the people that revered that book was in that area. Am I correct?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just to get it, because a lot of people like to, look into the book and the contents of the book and try to discredit it, like token donkeys and people holding up their arms, keeping up the sun. That's not the point you're trying to prove. The point you're trying to prove is that there are black people that practice that they have been in that area. So that's like a lot of people conflate arguments and positions and paradigms, and sometimes you kind of got to elucidate it for them.
Con, you break it up a little bit, but we were able to make out what you're saying. But you're absolutely right. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about listen. We're talking about that there's an abundance of sources, extra biblical sources that confirm the presence and culture and even the written language of our people being seen and recorded in Africa during the time of the slave trade. And these people had communities, kingdoms, governments. They weren't just all nomadic people wandering around. They had been there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Right? And they clearly understand
because they have some. I'm sorry, I'm probably breaking up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Art. Get it out.
No, and I was just about to say there are even some sources. I don't know if you're gonna bring them out tonight, but I'll probably bring them out as well. There are some sources that state that the Israelites in that area were the first people ever to be in that area of West Africa. So a lot of people don't realize that West Africa, for the most part, was uninhabited. The story of world history did not happen in that area. It happened in the Nile Basin and the Euphrates Valley. So, you know, that area, a lot of places, you know, we were the first people to set foot on some instances. So I just wanted to say that.
Come. So let's continue. Like, we're talking extra biblical sources here, right? Let's deal with this. And this is very important that we even talk about and understand who these people are. Because I had a brother ask me the other day, show me black Chaldeans. Show me prove that the Chaldeans were black. Prove it.
Bro, we can show you black Chaldeans right now if you want to.
Exactly.
If you really want to get into it.
Let's do it. Let's do it, because I want people to not just look at the extra biblical sources, but let them see the visuals, because that remember the information at times. So definitely let's get into it. You need me to share your screen?
And I just want to let you know, Yarah, just slide that presentation, that one slide right there over to me, because I'm definitely gonna hijack it for tomorrow. But that's a dagger right there.
I sure will. Absolutely. I'm gonna I'll send it to you this evening. Absolutely. You want to share your screen more?
Hold on, let me find it. I wasn't prepped to show that one. Let me try to find it right.
Well, I'm gonna keep going, and then when you're ready, just shout out. Let me know when you're ready. So we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about the Chaldeans, right? This is from another series, classical reprint series, right? And this is from the Anacalypsis. The Anacalypsis by Godfrey Higgins. The Anacalypsis by Godfrey Higgins, right? And this is an attempt to draw aside the veil of the Saitic Isis, or an inquiry into the origin of language, nations, and religions. Volume 1 by Godfrey Higgins. They call this the Forgotten Book Series. These books are hundreds, almost $1,000, $1,500 each. These books from this series. That's how important and old the information is that has not been debunked. No, I haven't found one scholar that can debunk this information that was here in these books, especially in this series. So in the Anacalypsis, this is what they say. He talks about the Chaldeans, the British historian, and talks about the Africans in Iraq. So listen to what Godfrey Higgins says. He wrote this in the 17th century in his book, The Anacalypsis, what you see on the screen here, about the early inhabitants of Iraq. Chaldeans was the ancient name for the people who lived there. He says this. He says, I admit with great difficulty the theory of all the early astronomical knowledge of the Chaldees having been acquired or invented by his race, and that the Chaldeans were originally what? Negroes. Negroes. So when we talking about these things and we're reading these things in scripture, we see this. This is where Terah in the land of Ur, when it talks about that in Genesis chapter 10, going all the way to Genesis chapter 20 and 23, when it talks about Terah and his family and Moses and Abraham and Sarah, these are the lands that they're in. These are the lands that they're moving around, that they're coming from. When Terah leaves up out of Ur, this is why they said this is what? Ur of what? The Chaldees. This historian clearly says in the 1700s that the Chaldeans are what? Original Negroes.
Now check this out. Okay, so as Israelites, we understand what Negroes are, right? But I think it's extremely important to bring out this point. Okay, so we understand that this is before modern archaeology. The 17th century, that's the 1600s. That is modern archaeology began in the 1800s, I believe. And so that man, you know, he was astonished, but he published it anyway. He had the heart and the to publish it anyway. The truth, right? So it's a lot more difficult to do that today. Well, maybe not, but there is still a high level of ridicule. You know what I mean? 'Cause you got to understand that back then it was less scholars, and it was less access to publishing. The printing press was just a print invented near that time. You see what I'm saying?
Huh.
So, the importance of me saying this, the reason that's important is because today there's an overload of information, and the truth gets lost in the overload of information, and it gets ridiculed by the skin folk that ain't our kinfolk, who try to hide reality in archaeology.
Absolutely. I agree 100%, Klein. And so we clearly see that even when we're talking about the origins of our forefathers, say, oh, well, the Chaldeans, we know. And we're dealing with the evidence here. So let's continue. Here's another book from that series, The History of Anthropology, right? By Alfred C. Haddon. He talks about the Africans in Iran and Persia. A British anthropologist named Alfred C. Haddon wrote in 1934 in his book, The History of Anthropology, the Elamites of Mesopotamia seem to be a Negro people with kinky hair and have transmitted this racial type to who? The Jews and Assyrians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, real quick, I got that.
You think that's why Hitler wanted to kill him?
Oh, absolutely. I don't put it past him. You ready, Art?
Yeah, let me share my screen right quick.
That old one drop rule. Go ahead, Moore.
Yeah, so this is from a presentation given by a woman named Dana Marnici. I have almost a 7-hour interview with her on my channel. She's an ethnobiographer. She was in the book Golden Age. She wrote an ethnobiography of the Moors in the book Golden Age of the Moors by Ivan Van Sertima and whatnot. So in her presentation, like, you can't really see it too clear because I got the title up here the way it's full screen and whatnot. But she's talking about the Yarah clan of Yafi bin Qasid, Kasdim, the Kasdim, right? So when you look up Chaldean in Hebrew, it says Kasdim, right? Mm-hmm. These are the Qasid people. These are people who are living in Southern Arabia right now, and they still are known. They're still known for doing their Chaldean magic, as it's so-called called. You know what I'm saying? And their Chaldean astrology is what they were known for in the Bible, etc. Whatnot.
Wow.
But these people are still alive and kicking today. The Yarah clan of the Yafi bin Qasid. And there's more. Like if you check out the interview, she talks about like the elder was talking about Zipporah and whatnot. She gets into the people who are still in the land, who are dark skinned, calling themselves Midianites, etc. whatnot. In Southern Arabia, East Africa, and in North Africa, etc. whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, but there's a lot of info on this, and there's certain people who are collecting this info and doing a lot of work for us that we will be benefiting from very, very soon.
Appreciate that knowledge more. And so we clearly see that as we continue going through this information and looking at it righteously, looking at it unbiasedly, this is not information we've concocted. This is information that's more brought out. These are scholars, top scholars, who have their hands in the sand. They're doing the research, people. They're confirming what the scripture says. They're confirming the history of our people in the scriptures in these lands. So when we have people like Garfield and we have people like MBK and Rob Bourne that clearly always wants to argue that there's no Israelite or significant Israelite presence in Africa, it's false. It's folly. And they walk around and they want to say, hey, look, you know, we want all the smoke. But as Gideon said, all they want to argue is about did Joshua steal the sun? Did the sun really stop moving? Or did Elijah really make a axe head float from the bottom of the river to the top? But we're dealing with the information here. We're dealing with this information, extra biblical sources that line up and confirm what the scriptures are teaching. We're not convoluted in our thinking. This isn't some magical people that didn't exist. We often hear certain people say that Israelites never existed. Well, history doesn't agree with that statement. It's contrary to the scripture. It's contrary to anthropology. It's contrary to the sciences. There's no basis for that argument. It fails. It falls flat. So let me continue sharing my screen. Let's go here. This is another book from that series. This is the Prehistoric Nations. The Prehistoric Nations by John D. Baldwin. Right? Listen to what he says, family. Let me go back. Africans in the Middle East. This is the name of it. Africans in the Middle East. John D. Baldwin, historian and former senator, wrote in his book, Prehistoric Nations. Right? Listen to what he says. It is now admitted that a people of the Cushite or Ethiopian race, sometimes called Hamites, were the first civilizers and builders throughout Western Asia, and they are traced by the remains of their language, their architecture, and the influence of their and the influence of their civilization on both shores of the Mediterranean, in Eastern Africa and the Nile Valley, in Hindustan, and in the islands of the Indian Seas. The reason why I felt it was important to add this at the very end is to clearly show that now we have an understanding, even in the prehistoric nations, that even in all of those surrounding areas, that those people, the Cushites and the Ethiopians, these people were the first civilizers. These people weren't very important people in those lands. And so when we talk about the Hamitic races, what we have to stand when we understand prehistoric nations according to the scripture, and why that's important is because now we see when the scripture tells us when Noah and his sons, when they began, after they got off of the ark and they began to spread out, we understand that the scripture tells us that Ham was apportioned the lands where? In Africa. In those areas what we call Ethiopia and Cushitic lands. So we have to understand what the correct arguments are. There is no curse of Ham. It's not what the scripture teaches. It doesn't even say it, but you often hear that argument. I just heard it the other day. I was on one of those other platforms, and somebody was saying, "Well, the Bible, your God of the Bible cursed Ham." Doesn't say that. Doesn't say that at all. So let me continue. This book here is called The Lost Tribes, a Myth. And it's called The Lost Tribes, a Myth, Suggestions Towards Rewriting Hebrew History, hardcover, January 1st, 1930, by Allen Howard Godby. Listen to what he says. Israelite among American Negroes. Listen to what he says in 1930, people. Listen to what he says. Dr. Allen H. Godby postulates the position that Black Jews were on the West African coast from Senegal to Angola, and they, the Jews, were driven to this area from the Central Sudan by Muslim propagandism. Having a knowledge of the Black Jews in the United States, Dr. Godby arrived at this conclusion. Listen to what he says. Next slide. These facts have peculiar significance when the presence of Judaism among American Negroes is to be considered. Hundreds of thousands of slaves were brought to the America from this Western Africa during the days of the traffic. And when he says the traffic, he's talking about the transatlantic slave trade, beginning nearly 400 years ago. How much more of Judaism survived among West African Negroes in that earlier time? He asked the question. Let's continue. As persecuted communities, they were rather more in danger than other Negroes of being raided by what? War parties and what? Sold as slaves. It may be considered certain that many partially Judaized Negroes were among the slaves brought to America. This is from the Book of the Lost Tribes, a myth. This is what he writes, people. Like, we're talking about extra biblical sources here. We're not talking about something we're just making up, we're concocting. We're not writing this information. And listen, I beg the question, what reason or what purpose do these authors and these historians and these cartographers, these geographers, what purpose do they have in writing that they are finding Black Jews in West Africa and in the Sudan and in Ethiopia, all throughout Africa? What reason? What does it benefit them?
And not only that, what gave them the wherewithal? Because these are different scholars from different time periods to know that they're going to do this all in a conspiracy to shut down the Black man that's going to be invented in the 19th century, Black being the term being invented. You see what I'm saying? So how did somebody like Strabo from BC times know that he's going to write this in terms to defeat? You know, it's like, it's just too, like, man don't think like that. That's spanning generations, you know, time periods. So yeah, it makes no sense. Like, what's the motive? What's their motive behind it? Like, it's crazy.
Exactly. I mean, there's just it makes absolutely no sense. Let's continue. We talked about Senegal, and the historians writing that they found Black Jews or Israelites in the area of Senegal. This is the story of Senegal's hated, reclusive Jewish community. This is from the Haaretz News, and this is a Israeli journalistic media source, right? So listen to what they say, family. Listen to what they say. The story of Senegal's hated, exclusive Jewish community. They say Portuguese navigators documenting their voyages around Africa's shores in the 15th century actually reveal how the Europeans saw the world and the Jews. Now let's look at this article and see what they're talking about. This is directly from this article. It says the Hebrews in Senegal. The European Jewish newspaper known as Haaretz published documents from a Portuguese traveler who wrote about what he saw in Senegal during the time of the slave trade. The Portuguese traveler said this: some of the people, some of the people here believe in Muhammad, but the majority are idol worshippers, wrote the nameless Portuguese navigator. In this land, there are Jews known as Gauls. Are y'all understanding?
Wow, that's wow.
What they're saying here?
This something I never ran across this source. So this, yeah, that's nice right there. There's so much out there.
Yeah, it's a preponderance of evidence. They were called the Gauls. And we're going to talk about where we see and where we find the Gauls and what they've done in history. I'm going to touch on that a little bit. Well, I'm going to keep going through this slide because that's a very important, that's a powerful statement. And listen to what he says. Are Jews known as Gauls, and they are black like the rest of the inhabitants, but they have no synagogues and do not conduct Jewish ceremonies. And we understand this because they were in these lands for so long. A lot of them didn't practice the customs, or they lost the customs from not practicing the customs. Why? Because being in the land surrounded by these other nations that were not of Israel, they picked up their practices on how to work the land. They picked up on their practices on how to deal in certain situations based on that environment. So they lost their customs. But the people, see, here's the thing. The indigenous people in Africa who had always been there didn't lose their customs. So they knew that these people that were in their lands were not of them. Y'all understand? They were not of them. And this is what you hear over and over and over again.
Yeah. Just thinking that.
The indigenous people of Africa tell you that there's a Negro people here, there's a black people here. These people are Jews, they're Israelites, they're Hebrews, they came from the east, they came into our land, they call some of them squatters. They say they do not hold our practices the same. They got funny practices. They don't talk to us on the Shabbat, on the Sabbath. They don't eat what we eat. They don't govern how we eat. They're writing in Hebrew, not in our language. They look like us, but we know they're not us. This is being repeated over and over again throughout the annals of history about the people in these lands. We're talking about extra biblical sources here. And then you'll have someone come by and say, they're just making these claims. No, we're talking about what do you call a claim with evidence? A fact.
Proof.
Yeah, and not only that, when you got it triangulated, like, so for instance, Yarah was talking about like Muslims moving in and doing some work on people, right? So the Muslim sources, right, the Islamic sources break down, like with Ibn Khaldun, right? He breaks down all kind of different Berber tribes that are so-called air quotes Judaized all over the place. You know what I'm saying? During this medieval time period from like the 5th to the 15th century and whatnot. And so you got Muslims saying the same. You got Muslims saying one thing, and you got the Christians saying another thing, or saying the same thing on the other side. That they're running into these people in this area, and that there's Jews there. You know what I'm saying? Real clear about that. And with the Gauls and whatnot, that's interesting because you were talking about the Phoenicians earlier at one point and whatnot. And so when you actually go into to Carthaginian and Phoenician history, you can see that when the Barcid family and Hannibal Barca, when he actually goes and makes his rounds to Rome, when he starts taking the elephants across the Alps and whatnot, he's picking up people along the way. And one of the groups that he picks up are the Gauls. They fight. They're fighting with them all the way back then and whatnot. And that's significant. Like I'll tell you right now, like my family comes from like the Carthaginian Jews and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And so there's people have no idea how much in Northwest and Central Africa,
Right.
the Jews were. You know what I'm saying? And so we'll get into that more in a little bit though.
Sure, absolutely. And I said, as I'm going through this, you brothers feel free to interject if you have any questions. When you have thoughts, they get away from you when you try. I don't mind, interrupt me. You know, it might take me a little bit to get through the information, but please interrupt me. But I want you brothers to be able to speak, you know, so we can have a solid dialogue. But I left this up on here because somebody asked about this article. I don't have the actual link, but here it is. I did look at it a couple of days ago, so I do know it's still available online. And you should be able to see it's the story of Senegal's hated reclusive Jewish community. So you can see that article if you search it. I'll leave it up there. Thank you, Nails. One Nails one. She said she's reading it right now. Right. So let's continue. Here's our friend. Now he's not a stranger to the whole Israelite paradigm, right? Olude, I believe that's how you say it. Olude Aquino, right? We've heard his name thrown around. A lot of people try to dismiss his writings and his work simply because it's post-colonial, and so they say, "Oh, he's just making a claim. He's not giving any definitives." But why he's important here is because of what he says and what we see later on that confirms what he says, and we're going to get into that. But clearly, we see that what he's saying is lines up with what we know that historians centuries before him, going back 300 years before him, is saying. His information is lining up. And so, you know, people often try to discredit what he's saying. But let's get into a little bit of what he actually says. Right? Oluda Aquino, a historical account from the 1700s, describes the connection between West Africans and the Israelites. This account is from an African man from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. It's important because we're going to get into that a little bit later. We're going to talk about the Igbo tribe, and we've had a lot of arguments in the community, a lot of conversations about the Igbo tribe, whether or not they were Israelites or had Israelite ancestry, and what that means, and if it. We're gonna tie this in and show why this work is important. Listen, just simply because. Hold on 1 second. Okay, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, you good.
Yeah, you good.
You good, money?
Yeah,
all right.
Good.
Okay, good. The reason why it's important is because we can see, we're going to be able to see again where what he's writing is going to line up with more modern understanding, in an even more modern research and understanding. And we're talking about extra biblical sources here. And then again, we're going to beg the same question again. You may say it's a logical fallacy to beg the question. My point is here, we're addressing your cognitive dissonance about accepting new information or information that has evidence along with it and proof. So let's read again what he says. A historical account from the 1700s describes the connection between West Africans and the Israelites. This account is from an African man from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria named Olude Aquino. He was kidnapped from Nigeria and was enslaved in Barbados and Virginia. He was somehow able to purchase his freedom and went on to become a writer and abolitionist. In his autobiography, he not only documented the horrors of slavery, but he also wrote about his culture back home during the slave trade. He detailed how his tribe practiced the same customs of the Jews in the Hebrew Bible, called the Torah, right? Most people say, oh, he just wanted to reconnect or find, he was going through an identity crisis. He was separated from his people. So he grabs on to anything that's basically reminding. So this is just basically just making a claim here. But he's writing his autobiography. What we're only talking about here is simply his observations. We're talking about his observations, what he knows, his eyewitness accounts of his people and in his homeland and of their customs. We're talking about his eyewitness accounts. He was there. You weren't. But they simply try to tear down this information because they don't want you to show Israelite presence in West Africa or in Africa at all. So let's see what he says. He says, we practice circumcision like the Jews and made offerings and feasts on that occasion in the same manner as they did. Such in the imperfect sketch, my memory has furnished me with of the manners and customs of a people among whom I first drew my breath. And here I cannot forbear suggesting what has long struck me very forcibly, namely the strong analogy which even by this sketch, imperfect as it is, appears to prevail in the manners and customs of my countrymen and those of the Jews before they reached the land of promise. Now, he's saying that these were of his people. These practices came before his people, before they reached the land of promise. Now, that's an important statement there that he says that no one ever brings out. Because what is he saying? He's saying these were practices of my people before they went into where? Into Jerusalem or into Canaan land. Am I correct in saying this, family?
Nah, you spot on with that. It's evident.
He's given an account of his people before they went into the promised land.
Right. They even have some traditions of Israelites splitting off with Moses en route to the promised land, going somewhere else, called the sons of Moses. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is important. So when they are trying to discredit Brother Aquino, listen to what he's telling you. He said these traditions were held way before my people, even before the Jews were even accounted going into the promised land. He said, so I'm not ripping from the account of the Jews and them being in Jerusalem as the Jews talk about, or the black Jews talk about. He said this is from our people aforetime, before that. So that he's talking about his people going all the way back to the time of Moses. This is the information that he's given us in his autobiography. Don't let them dismiss the information. Don't let them beat down the information, because I guarantee you they've cherry-picked it. They have not read the book from cover to cover. A lot of this stuff that they're debating against, a lot of this information, they're internet researchers. And so they take little quips here and a little quip there, and they leave off the important parts of the information or what the author is really saying. You can't open up a book, rip out the middle page, read the middle page and say, look, I know what the whole book is about. No, you don't. You're a liar. It's impossible. Let's go a little further. He says, like the Israelites in their primitive state, our government was conducted by our chiefs or judges, our wise men and elders, and the head of a family with us enjoyed a similar authority over his household with that which is ascribed to Abraham and the other patriarchs. He said, that's what my people do. This is reminiscent of what my people do before I was drugged off as a slave. Don't let them sully your information with chopped up chapters and cherry picked verses. Challenge them on what does it really say. Listen to what he says. The law of retaliation obtained almost universally with us as with them, and even their religion appeared to have shed upon us a ray of its glory, though broken and spent in its passage, or eclipsed by the cloud with which time, tradition, and ignorance might have enveloped it. For we had our circumcision, a rule, I believe, peculiar to that people. We had also our sacrifices and burnt offerings, our washings and purifications on the same occasions as they had. Now, we see these things evident. Even in the New Testament scripture, in the Pre-Colonial, we still see washings. They always talk about, oh, well, the Mashiach, see, he was homosexual, was he gay? I wouldn't wash another man's feet. Well, your ancestors were washing folks. And listen, I'm gonna got some breaking news for you. They weren't just washing their feet either. They were washing their whole bodies. That's an ancient African purification ritual, the washings of the whole body, not just the feet. Let's continue, family. The funny thing is, I'm only a third of the way through this presentation. I'm gonna have to stop in a few minutes. Well, not a few minutes. So I'm gonna leave some meat on the bone for the next one. Let's go here. Hebrewisms of West Africa. Now, this is this book by Dr. John J. Williams is often attacked by those outside of the Israelite community and paradigm because they simply saying, "Oh, he's just making a claim. He's just stating similarities." But what does he actually say? And I only just pulled out this one page. I have much more, especially in his book on page 83. Pages 83 and 84 in this book are very powerful pages to read and to understand. So if you have this book, I have it, Hebrews of West Africa by Dr. Joseph J. Williams. Read pages 83, and 84. See if it opens up your understanding even more. But let's read what he says here on page 227. He says, whatever may be thought of the more or less mythological traditions connected with the earliest Jews in North Africa, it is now practical and established fact that the Jewish nation, Jewish at least in faith and perhaps too in origin, long held sway south of the Sahara. So he's saying, look, there is a fact that there's an African, Hebraic, Jewish, Israelite presence, whether by, he says, conversion, or whether he says, or if by origin, in the Sahara, south of the Sahara. I believe that's Sudan, if I'm not mistaken. But you'll often hear people attack this work by Dr. John J. Williams because they simply say, oh, he simply is making a claim. He's not getting any definite. Well, he just said this is by fact on page 227. This is a fact. This is what I'm saying. Don't let them beat up good sources of information that we have. simply because they're cherry picking what they want. They haven't read these books cover to cover, and they have no understanding of what these authors are even saying. They can't, because they cherry picking. You can't get an understanding of anything like that. It's not possible. Let's go into this. Remember, we were talking about Brother Olode Aquino, saying that he was from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, and that how he understood and felt this strong connection and remembered the customs that he seen practiced by the Jews in the Bible were the same customs that his people practiced well before they went over into the promised land. And so, as I said before, they often dismiss our brother because of the time that he's writing. It's post-colonial. But let's see further the information. Let's see who agrees at least with what he's saying about who the Igbo tribe is in Nigeria. Let's see who agrees with him. And then again, I'm going to ask yourself, what's the purpose of them agreeing with this information? What reason would they have to even say this as we get into it? I'm going to blow this up a little bit so the family can see it. Right? What we're reading here, what we're about to get into here, is from the U.S. Department of State archives. This is an official U.S. government document. An official U.S. government document. Right? Let's see what they say. The title of it is Foreign Relations, 1969 to 1976, Volume E5, Documents on Africa, 1969 to 1972. You can still download this PDF today and read it for yourselves, family. Right? You can still read it for yourselves. I have the link here, but I won't go to it right now. But we'll talk about it, right? So it says Foreign Relations Document Volume E-5, Documents on Africa, 1969-1972. See White House memo here. This is an official White House memorandum from January, dated January 28, 1969. Let's get into what it says, family. Let's pay close attention here. And this is in regards to the Nigerian Civil War. Foreign Relations Document, Volume E5, Documents on Africa, 1969 to 1972, right? Current position. The feds still insist that Biafri must renounce sovereignty before they'll talk peace in earnest. Within a federal structure, they have talked about schemes for Igbo protection, or the Igbo tribe. They're talking about the Igbo tribe in Nigeria. This is what Olode Aquino was referring to. This is his people, who he's saying had Jewish customs, according to his memory and what he understood growing up before he was captured as a slave, before the time of the Israelites going into the promised land. This is the same people he's talking about. The scheme they're talking about here in this official U.S. government document for Igbo protection. He says, including an international police force, but they are vague on questions of political amnesty and the place of Igbos in the future federal army. They see the outside world, and particularly us, drifting toward the rebels out of evil design or misguided sympathy. They feel their own war weariness, are frightened and emboldened by it, and are probably very near a xenophobic outburst, which would find an external scapegoat for their frustrations. Our 8 transports almost triggered it. Recent intelligence indicates that the feds plan a major offensive in March before the spring rains bog everyone down, barring a real escalation in weaponry or expertise from outside sources. Their prospects of breaching the rebel perimeter are still slight. The failure would bring Lagos to the boiling point. Lagos is the capital of Nigeria. let's finish reading a little bit more. Listen to what they say, people. It says, by Ofri, 3,000 square feet, 4 to 6 million. Colonel Agukwu, 35, British trained erstwhile playboy, presides over the popular support and military morale of a people convinced that defeat means extinction. Listen to what they say in the official U.S. government document from 1969 to 1972 about the Nigerian Civil War. Listen to what they say in this official government document. The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. That's in the official government United States archives. That's an official document. This is the tribe that Olude, I keep messing up his name, Olude Equino hails in his autobiography in the 1700s that he comes from.
I missed the source. Is that the Negro lands?
You missed the source here. This is from the U.S. Department of State archives. This is a memorandum from June 28, 1969.
A memorandum. Okay, gotcha.
Yep,
Okay.
This is an official U.S. document. And this is what they say in the document. This is taken directly from this document. You can you can look it up for yourself. It's still available online. It says the Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. I'm going to beg the question again. Why would they have that statement in the document? What purpose does it hold? The reason why this is there is because there was a war in Nigeria. The indigenous people of Nigeria had identified these Igbos as not their people, not indigenous African people, but a people from the East that had came and settled in their land thousands of years ago. See, indigenous people of Africa, they never really lost their history. So they know when people come into their land that don't belong there or didn't belong there. So this is what this document is confirming. It's confirming Brother Equino's synopsis, his observation. They say clearly again, I'm going to read it one more time. The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. Does this not put Black Israelites or Black Jews or Black or Black Hebrews in West Africa?
Absolutely.
The argument here is simply from others that disagree with this information is their cognitive dissonance will not allow them, and their confirmation bias will not allow them to accept new information.
Let me get spooky right now.
Their paradigm.
The Most High put a block on their brain.
Facts.
See, that's why I focus on beating them over the head with old information. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
With old information. But we'll get into that in a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like it's crazy. Let's continue. I'm gonna go over.
Now let me show you the magic that they use, right? Old information is dated, new information is not old enough. It's not.
Ooh, it depends on who the source is. You understand what I'm saying? Because when you come out with primaries, my G, like you can't even mess with that. Hey, Elder, real quick before you move on, do you have the picture of the Saracen in this build?
Yes, I do. I saved it.
Oh, cool.
I saved it.
Good money.
I saved it because I told you I was going. I wasn't letting that go, family. That was too rich.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on that at the end. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I got you, Yehukanan.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that. Yeah, my I don't know what it be with this thing. What do you call it? The firewall. But anyway, the I can't pull it up now, but the science shows E1 EM2 or E1B1A in the Middle East or in Northeast Africa. The science shows that there's a presence there, an ancient presence there, as well as the L2 L3 haplotype for the females. So and that's the science behind it. So you can't argue.
Yeah, stay tuned, Yehukanan, because I want to grab you and work on a project right quick about breaking down the DNA of certain tribes that I'm about to show you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I'm gonna go through just one or two, and I'm just gonna go right to that more, so you can go in on that because I've been going through this long enough.
Okay.
So let me get down to your I won't even go through this. I'll say that for later today. But let me get down to where we're talking about we're talking about the Saracens. Yeah, we'll come back around because then I do talk about the DNA of the limber here, Yukanan, and what it actually is identified here, with the limber.
Stick right there for a quick second though. Like so family. Okay. Remember when the limber came out? This is when you saw the people in the current nation of Israel, they had to hit the brakes with both feet, right? Because they kept talking about like, oh, DNA, and then boom, like you see on the screen right now, like you can't really get a better match than that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Can't do it.
So the moment that there was people in Africa with the Kohanim gene that they were talking about, they had to hit the brakes with both feet. So when somebody from Africa makes the claim, hey, we're saying we're from the people, they now have to send in people and investigate thorough style. You know what I'm saying? And so it's about to get real ugly based upon some information we're about to get into.
And so that's absolutely
right. Before you go skip over the limber, they actually have EM2 haplotype, which is E1B1A haplotype. They have that. They also considered to be Bantu, from Bantu people.
That's evidence. And so so if anybody wants to look at that source from that genetic testing, the DNA testing on the limber tribe, showing their Israelite presence based on DNA evidence in Africa, here's the source for that. I'll just leave it up for a second. As a matter of fact, let me blow it up.
And what's beautiful about the limber, right, is so the scroll stipulate this, right, is that when the Israelites get called home, they get called home from the north, the south, the east, and the west. And so they're definitely representative of that southern concept, right? When the Yarah was going on the whole Kush tip and whatnot, many people being called home from Kush, etc., whatnot. That's why I was like, yo, you got the Israelites in South Africa. You got people in the Horn. You got people in Yemen. You got people in Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? Like, but here's the question, right? So if the scroll says from the west, who are the Israelites in the west?
I see.
And furthermore, how do you even say it in the language, right? We'll get into that. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I see you more. Let me get out. We touched on Joseph J. Williams a little bit. I want to get down to where we were talking about. I'll just go over that. And I think more this is what you were referring to.
Woo! That's the picture right there, Elder. You know what I'm saying? So
let me see if I can make it where everybody can really see it. Shalom, Blue Collar Scholar, for subscribing to the channel, family. All praise to Yahweh.
All praise to the Most High.
There we go. I think I got it all. I think I want people to see that full picture. Should I make it a little bit bigger?
No, hold on. Let me just do it like this. because I can share my screen real quick.
Okay, bet.
Because I'm gonna be sharing screen anyway. So hold up.
Yep. Cool.
Bam. 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 So this is the picture we're talking about right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to get this joint on my wall, fam. So the character on the left with the curved blade in his hand is called a Saracen. The people to his right are called Christians. You know what I'm saying? And so historically, this character of the Saracen is seen as just a Muslim. And so we were talking earlier about the Hebrew language in West Africa and whatnot. But what a lot of people don't know is that the reason why they're having a hard time finding some Hebrew writing now is because they eventually started writing in Arabic. And so I'm going to jump into this real quick. Let me jump off this and go back to this real quick and actually just show you what the definition of a Saracen was. Okay. Etymologically speaking, in Old English, it says in Arab, right? In Greek and Roman translations, also mid 13th century, generally non-Christian, heathen, pagan, from Old French, Saracen, from the late Latin, Saracenos, from the Greek, Sarakenos, usually said to be from Arabic, Sharqiyin, accusative plural of Sharqi, Eastern, from Sharq, East, sunrise. But this is not certain. In medieval times, the name was associated with that of biblical Sarah.
Wow.
Of biblical Sarah. And so what I want my people to understand is medieval times is a known period of history. We're talking from the 5th century to the 15th century. So from that time period, from the 5th century to the 15th century, the name Saracen dealt with those who were associated with the lineage of biblical Sarah, right? And when I get down to it, there's a word down here I want to click on called Sarsen. Okay, I want y'all to check this out. So Sarsen is a noun. It means large sandstone boulder from 1640s, properly Sarsen stone. So for instance, what's that? Stonehenge in England and whatnot, right? So Stonehenge was historically called something was called a Sarsen stone. Those kind of images are called Sarsen stones historically. And what they mean by that is it means Saracen stone. And it comes from Saracen in the old sense of pagan heathen. The same word was applied to the ancient leavings outside of Cornish tin mines. So the Cornish tin mines are in England. I think they're northeast England, etc. Whatnot. And the interesting thing about that is, we were talking about the Phoenicians, right, and the Carthaginians, etc. Whatnot, right. So again, I'm telling you, my family comes from my mother's side comes from Carthaginian Jews that eventually went to Spain, then Mexico, etc. Whatnot, right. And so the way they got to Spain was through the Carthaginians. So the Barcid family, like Hannibal Barca, the person who brought Rome to their knees, etc. Whatnot, like one of the most feared military generals in history, right. They became their own individual empire within the Mediterranean the world because they went to Spain and found a large amount of silver. They built a whole empire off that. Not only that, they found tin and copper, etc. whatnot, but they went as far north as Sweden to go mine the tin. And so the tin was very important for them because they made bronze with that and whatnot. That was a big deal during that time period, whatnot, right? So, but what they're saying is this. Watch this. I'm gonna read all together real quick. The same word was applied to the ancient leavings outside of Cornish tin mines, also known as Jews' pits.
Wow.
Those being the terms that came to mind once to describe any ancient features based on the Bible and whatnot. Based on the Bible, right? So real quick, right? Like so we saw the picture of what the Saracen looked like, right? So I just want to be real clear on what the sources actually say about the Saracens and whatnot. So when the papal bulls came out to start the slave trade, okay, family, we're talking about Doom Diversus right here. We're talking about Ilias Qui. We're talking about Intercaetera, right? But so we're talking 1542, 1556, etc. whatnot. Watch what they say about who the slave trade is being implemented on. Okay, this is coming from the Pope's hand. This is papal law, papal bull. This is like the papal version of an executive order, but it becomes law, right? It says, we grant you by these present documents with our apostolic authority, full and free permission to invade, search out, capture, and subjugate the Saracens and pagans and any other unbelievers and enemies of Christ, wherever they may be, as well as their kingdoms, etc., 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 whatnot. This marks the age of discovery, where they go taking over previously inhabited lands and information and whatnot, and start claiming it for themselves and whatnot. But they say right off the top that they're targeting the Saracens, right? And so again, what do we find out about the Saracens? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That in medieval times, that name was associated with that of biblical Sarah. And so real quick, what I want to break down is the fact, like, so the first time you're going to start seeing this name is in a place called Sarakim with a K, right? This is a place that got annexed by Rome, but the sources will tell you that it's in Arabia Petraea, which again, hold on, let me, if I click this, you should be able to see this map right quick. We're talking about the Sinai Peninsula in the Levant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're also talking about this area of Sarakim was in Arabia Deserta. So let me click this map right quick. So this is Arabia Petraea on the left and Arabia Deserta on the right. So what they're saying is, after the fall of Jerusalem and whatnot, right? After the destruction of the temple, there was a group of people in this area that kept marauding supply lines and just doing work on cats. And so they focused on taking them out. And once they took them out, they annexed the area. They literally erased it from history, from the annals of history. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And these people got pushed to the south, and they also got pushed to the west. And what's interesting about this, once they get pushed to the south, they're getting pushed into what is known then as like the Ethiopian and Himyarite so-called Christian lands. When Gideon was talking about the Christianized people, the Christianized Jews, I was like, oh, break that one down, right? Because historically we're talking about the people that live in this area here in the Aksumite area. And Aksum literally had control over the Hijaz and over southern Yemen at the time, right? And so we see the Aksumite kingdom and the Himyarite kingdom adopting a Nazarene form of Christianity, not the Catholic form, but a Nazarene form of Christianity, right?
Yes.
And so this medieval time period from the 4th and 15th century, what we see is from the 1st to the 5th century that there is a large migration of the people from Aksum in the Himyarite kingdoms to North and West Africa. In fact, the Moors actually claim lineage from a certain group of them claim lineage from the Yemenite kings that come over from the Himyarite people, etc. That's a whole nother story. I'll get into that later. You know what I'm saying? But this jump off into that. So you have the Saracens going south and then going west historically, right? Moving with this Himyarite and Aksumite migration from the 1st to 5th century. We're talking a large migration that happened. Not a small one, a large migration that happened. So again, you were hearing Yarah talk about sources saying that people that were coming in from the east, So what people don't recognize is they typically think about people coming into Africa through the Mediterranean and whatnot, right? What they don't recognize is there's this large historic trade route that goes through Central Africa in the Sudan. And in that central, so there's a term that originates over in East Africa and in the Eastern Sudan and in this area where you have this Aksumite, Himyarite people. There's a term called Berber that originates over there, and it stems from a group of people called the Berry. And I get into this again in the interview with the Dana Marnici. She has extensive work on citations all over the place, right? And even my Somali brothers over there right now will confirm the term Berber starts over there, right? And so they migrate over to the west, and I want you to see. Okay, so the Christians said that they were instituting the slave trade on the Saracens, right? Now look what America says about the people they're enslaving. So hold on, let me jump off this right quick. Let me go into the Negro Act of 1740 in South Carolina, right? So they had to make this Negro Act in South Carolina because the year before they had one of the biggest slave rebellions in the game happen over there, right? And one of the issues is that they were bringing over people who could read and write in languages that they couldn't read and write in extremely literate formats. And so they define who's a slave and who's not a slave, etc. But look at who they say they're enslaving. It says that the term Negro is confined to slave Africans, the ancient Berbers, and their descendants. So again, Dana Marnicha breaks down that term Berber goes back to berry, and that term literally means Eber. It means Hebrew. Literally. So in our interview, we actually go over all the Hebrew peoples that come over, not just the Israelites. We're talking about Midianites. We're talking about specific tribes of the Israelites like Dan and all them type of people. We're talking about Amalekites. We're talking about Chaldean people. We're talking about Moabite people. We're talking about all kind of different Hebrew people that come over in certain migrations and whatnot, right? But they all know who the Israelites are, and they don't deny who they are ever. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
They all know who is who. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But what's interesting about that is that where did I have it? I'm about to go back on this one. So there's a group of people who literally are in South Carolina.
Bring it out, Art.
You know what I'm saying? They start talking about this Negro law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because America made a treaty with Morocco that basically stipulated they had to let certain people go in certain situations, etc., whatnot. But what happens is in 1789, there's a group of people who make a petition to be freed in South Carolina. They say we don't want to be recognized as Negroes. We want to have a chat about this, right? Mm-hmm. And so what they stipulate is that these people were and some years ago, while fighting in defense of their country, they and their wives were captured and made prisoners of war by an African king. After this, a certain captain, Clark, had them delivered to him, promising they would be redeemed by the Moroccan ambassador residing in England and returned to their country. Instead, he transported them to South Carolina and sold them for slaves. Since then, by the greatest industry, they purchased freedom from their respective masters. They requested that as freeborn subjects of a prince in alliance with the U.S., that they should not be considered subject to a state law, then enforced known as the Negro Law. Right. So they didn't want to be. And when you get into the specifics, they wanted to be held to the rights of citizens. And so what's interesting about that is, so you got people coming over from Africa as slaves and whatnot. They buy their freedom. And when they're petitioning their freedom to be recognized as Moors, etc., whatnot, look at their names and whatnot, right? So their names are, the males are Francis, Daniel, Hamon, and Samuel. The women are Fatima, Flora, Sarah, and Clorinda. 3 of these names, these are their names. These aren't slaveholder names. Again, they came over from Africa. These are their names. These are their names, right? So 3 of these names are Israelite names. One is Daniel. One is Samuel, and one is Sarah. And what's interesting, what you need to understand about this family is Muslims never name their children these names. Daniel is an Israelite prophet that's not even mentioned in the Quran. Samuel is an Israelite prophet that's not even mentioned in the Quran. And in terms of like the whole Hagar Sarah thing, again, they don't ever name their daughter Sarah. Do you understand what I'm saying? These are 3 distinct Israelite names. Right. And these people were enslaved as Negroes. Right. And again, who did they say they were enslaving? Who was considered Negroes and whatnot? They were talking about
Saracens, sons of Sarah.
And more, you on point with that, man.
Ancient Berbers, fan. You understand what I'm saying? They knew exactly who they were enslaving. As a matter of fact, when you get into it, the enslavement, and again, the papal bulls come as a furthering of the Crusades and whatnot. And so when you really get into the Crusades, what you find out is that in the East, they're fighting a group called the Saracens, and in the West, they're fighting a group called the Moors. They push the Saracens to the West and then enslave the Saracens.
More. Read the rest of that section. That's section 4.
Oh, sure. So section 4, the term Negro is confined to slave Africans, the ancient Berbers, and their descendants. It does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, such as the Egyptians, Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as the Lascars.
See, like I said, there's a clear distinction of who these people are from the indigenous people of the land of Africa. A clear distinction. This is what they knew and understood. And was there any arguments to this?
No.
None.
None whatsoever.
None.
And again, there was no arguments when the people came through saying like, yeah, we were enslaved as such, right? But we don't want to be known as Negroes. We want to be known as our people. You know what I'm saying? So like,
exactly.
We don't want to be held to this law. You know what I'm saying?
Man, bro, that's deep.
Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, I'm saying like so historically speaking, the Christians knew that they were enslaving the Saracens, the people of the lineage of Sarah, right? And then in America, they already understood that they were enslaving the ancient Berbers, a term that goes back to meaning to go back to meaning the Hebrews and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So I don't care how you slice it, man. Like that's all I'm saying. Like let's beat them over the head with the old history. If they want like, oh man, this new stuff, no man, this new, you can't use this new. All right, cool. Are you trying to? Did the Pope not know who he was writing about?
God.
Did the Pope not know who he was fighting against?
Of course they knew. Of course they knew.
So when they
that was powerful right there, because it's something that I kind of looked at, but by me not being as versed in the Islam tradition and the Arab tradition, I didn't really expound on it too much. But that's something that stood out to me, how a lot of those establishments would have biblical names, as well as, you know, you could have them tied to the Muslims' names, but for the most part, they're not in the lineage of the Muslim people. Like you say, David, to a certain extent, even Moses. You know, you have several towns in West Africa named after Moses, but people and historians will tend to believe that those are strictly Arab Muslim places, when those are not really even the patriarchs of you know, the Arab culture, Muslim, you know. So yeah, man, that's powerful.
Hey, let me share my screen one more time, Elder.
Absolutely.
So to that point, right? So it's not just the Christian sources saying this, fam. So y'all go check this one out. This ain't me saying this. This is Ibn Khaldun saying this, right? He's a 14th century Arab historian, right? And he's speaking on the Judaized Berbers, right? This is a book he has. This is a famous historical book in Islam, right? It's called the Book of Lessons, Record of Beginnings and Events in the History of the Arabs and Foreigners and Berbers and their powerful contemporaries, right? This is what he says about the Judaized Berber tribes, okay? He names them, fam, okay? So we have the Jarawa, right? And from them, you have the Queen Kahina, the people of Queen Kahina and whatnot, right? You know what I'm saying? If y'all know about her, she's known as in fact, Kahina literally means a feminine priest, you know what I'm saying, in Arabic. They're calling her Cohen, basically, right? She comes from the Jarawa tribe, right? The Jarawa tribe is linked to the Zenata Berbers, right? Who dealt with a huge confederacy of different Berber tribes and whatnot, including the Jarawa, the Magrawa, and the Banu Ephraim. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you something right quick.
Shoot.
All right. Okay. So we're talking about Kahina, right? That relates to Cohen. Okay. So does the word Cohen translate to priest?
Yeah.
Are they in a lineage? Is an ancient patriarch named Cohen?
No, they're literally talking about they were calling her a priestess. Like, so when you get into the sources, they specifically, she's like a spiritual leader of the people, etc. whatnot, right? So she would be like Deborah. You know what I'm saying?
And more, can I say something real quick?
They are named Cohen, and they're just calling themselves priests, but they're not attaching themselves to a person.
Right. And real quick, I just want to add that another name that they have for Kahina, which segues all into this West Africa issue, is that her nickname was Queen of the Bottles, and what it translated as Obe, because the obia was more or less something that translated into whispering into wineskins, and that was something that was practiced as Israelite pagans did. That's what they did. When you read Samuel, when Saul summoned the spirit, so when they called Queen Kahina Queen of the Old, they were saying she's queen of the bottles. She's like an incanter or sorceress, because that was some of the slanders they had against her. But go ahead, Brother Moore.
Yeah, no facts.
That was good info.
Yeah, but that Zenata Berber tribe, including the Jaro where she came from, they were huge. They were a huge confederacy in North and West Africa. And what a lot of people don't recognize is Berbers, you can find them literally in half of Africa. You know what I'm saying? From the central part to the north and whatnot. From the northeast to the northwest, you know what I'm saying? From the central east to the central west. But going forward, like there was another group also that Ibn Khaldun talked about called the Nefzawa. And what's interesting about them is they specifically have links to the Yemenite migration that I was talking about, right? And they divided themselves into 12 groups. And some had links with that Aksumite Himyarite Christianity that I was talking about. And these are some other tribes that they mentioned and whatnot, et cetera, whatnot. And real quick, what I want to say this too while I'm here about the Christianity aspect of it, right? So historically, what we see amongst the people that were taken, right, and put on slave ships, et cetera, whatnot, who have links to the Berber peoples and all that type of stuff, right? So I want to make this real clear for the family. You literally had Torah only and Messianics together. Like, so when we see ourselves in America, like when people naturally want to lean towards one leaning or naturally want to lean towards another, like there's something epigenetic about that. You know what I'm saying? So like historically speaking, we were already living amongst each other like that, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'll leave that for a whole nother conversation. I want to touch on it a little bit. I'm gonna build on it way more later. You know what I'm saying? But this is where I want to talk about like looking at history in a different way, right? So we understand, like when the Moors went in Spain in 711 AD, people assume that that's just a Muslim thing. Okay, that's just like an Arab Muslim concept, right? Well, in fact, the general who led the charge, Tariq ibn Zayd, was thought to be either of Zenata or Nefzawa Berber origins. Okay, so when you understand the story of what happened about why they even went into Spain, you have a king over in Spain who's actually like he starts treating the people real ill up there, right? And you have Israelites up there who are getting taxed crazy, they're getting raped and pillaged, etc., whatnot. And so basically, what happens is they send down a kite down to their cousins, like, "Hey, man, come bring them things right quick and come help us out." You know what I'm saying? And so who do they send them to? Who comes up? The people who Ibn Khaldun says are the Judaized Berbers. So again, this picture of the Saracens fighting the Christians that I just showed you, that Elder showed you, whatnot, that comes from Spain. That comes from iconography of what's going on in Spain and whatnot, right? So again, they're saying they're fighting Saracens and Moors over there in Spain, right? And they differentiate between the two and whatnot, right? But again, the people who start this takeover of Spain and whatnot, which starts the golden age of Islam and the golden age of the Jews in the era, right? It starts by an army coming through of so-called Judaized Berbers that no one recognized as Judaized Berbers in modern times. Does that make sense to y'all?
That makes absolute
Nah, I'm just checking it out, working on the computer at the same time. But man, that's actually deep, man. It's always interesting and good to hear you break that science down from an Islamic point of view.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, that's some good stuff right there, man.
So when the Moors come in Spain and when the Saracens come in Spain and whatnot, we see that in Toledo, for instance, right? The Israelites that are already there, they open the gates for their brothers, you know what I'm saying? The Zenata and the Nefzawa that come through and whatnot. And they literally open the gates, they show them where to go, and they fight alongside them to push out the Christians who were pressing the hell out of them at the time, right? And so what happens is that the Israelites in Spain, they become translators at the time, right? Because like, so what happens, like the Moors take the front lines and they start fighting wars against the Christians and whatnot. And then the Israelites, they literally start translating a bunch of old text and modern text, etc., whatnot, into different languages and whatnot. And they become linguists in Arabic and whatnot. And so they speak Arabic and Hebrew, whatnot. But a lot of times when this is where a switch happens that a lot of people don't recognize. So again, they go from primarily writing in Hebrew to primarily writing in Arabic because that's the lingua franca of the era, right? They're in Muslim lands and whatnot, so they're having to write in Arabic and whatnot. And so there's a lot of writings that people run into and whatnot over in America, right? That are Arabic, etc. and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And that's because that some are definitely Muslims, right? But some are definitely Israelites and whatnot. And it's a lingua franca where they can literally communicate back and forth with each other, right? And this is why I was bringing up the rebellion in South Carolina in 1740, because that's what they were finding amongst these slave rebellions, is that these early slave rebellions is that these people were able to communicate with each other. Somebody's background is winning. Oh, there you go. They were able to communicate in Hebrew and in Arabic and whatnot to each other, and able to send signals, etc. whatnot, to where like the slaveholders couldn't actually know what they were planning out. So they were actually very successful up until a certain point in time about their slave revolts and whatnot, right? But that's one thing I want people to keep in mind, is that the Israelites of the era, they weren't just writing in Hebrew. They were writing in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic. This is why when you go into this is why when you go into that conversation that Rabbi Harry Rosenberg was having with Ronald Dalton Jr. and the West African Israelite brother, he started to flex like, yeah, well, if y'all are really Israelites, show me your Torah. And it was like, well, as a matter of fact, we have this Torah that's written in Yoruba, Aramaic, and Moroccan Arabic. The moment he said Moroccan Arabic, your man jumped back. He was like, okay, I'll shut up, because that means that y'all are actually, that means that he says, okay, he said that means that it's connected to the Spanish tradition, and the Spanish tradition was known to have a very deep linguistic history. You know what I'm saying? And again, what people need to understand is, from in West Africa, the Israelites were in a pocket from the Senegal River to the Niger River. And when you go up to the Niger River, this is where you have Timbuktu and Sankore, right? This is one of the big universities over there, right? And so those universities literally had the Arabic texts, where they had copied the Greek texts in earlier centuries and whatnot, and stored them there. So the Israelites were literally translating those texts into Latin in Spain and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Like, people, like, we were doing like the big linguistic stuff. We were writing all kind of stuff for people at the time. You see what I'm saying? We were writing stuff that was re-educating the world and whatnot. I really want people to understand that we were translating and writing the information as Israelites.
That's deep.
From Arabic to Latin. Literally educate, like, our modern society is built off of these translations.
Say that again.
Our modern societies are built off of these translations.
Right.
My first name.
A story that I heard throughout my studies, that an Islamic person invented some form of advanced math. I think it's calculus.
The zero or something like that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they were doing.
No, I think it's calculus. Yeah, I heard that too, about the zero as well. But
specifically, the works that we were translating here were the mathematical works and whatnot. So, for instance, there's works by a man named Al-Khwarizmi, right? And so we literally get the word algorithm from this man's name. Okay, we literally get the word.
That's the word. Yeah. That's the math that I was thinking about, algebra.
Yeah. Now, so our people.
So my question would be, if you go down this line of thinking that you're teaching us, I would suppose that we would run into an Israelite.
You would suppose that what?
I'm willing to bet that we would run into an Israelite when it comes to the algebra invention, the invention of algebra.
I don't necessarily know about the invention, but here's what I can say for a fact, is that the translations of the works of algebra that came into Western society, they were being done by us. So, for instance, my first name is Taiwan. I'm literally my first name comes from the Ibn Tibbon family. The Ibn Tibbon family were a group of Israelites that translated these works from Arabic, et cetera, and whatnot. So bottom line, what I'm saying is, try to think about this if you can, fam. Like, the algorithms that just run your computer and the internet and all them type of things, right? Just that alone, right? Like, the basis of that information was translated by our people Without
Berbers and Saracens, right?
yes, sir.
I got you. Okay.
Saracens
And more, you know what else is important
yes, sir.
on what you're kind of talking about is that a lot of the information that we're looking for is written in Arabic, you know, and
100%.
they're going to refuse to translate it.
But see, here's what
You know what I'm saying?
I was
And
talking to Yarah
even
about
to a
that
further
last night.
extent.
No, go ahead.
Don't Google translate.
And I just want to say real quick, with that being said, yeah, you can, but you got to find a book. Like right now, I've been trying to find a book by Ibakari, and it's just like pulling teeth, man. You can't find it. I always mention El Dad Hadani. It's like the only work he have is in French. So, you know, it's like you got to do some diligent searching and seeking because that's information the colonists don't want you to know. You know, they knew in this game, but like Moore was saying, the Arabics gave it to the Europeans, and they took it and ran with it. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, on to that effect, you know what I'm saying? So in Timbuktu, there was literally a large pocket of Israelites that were known to be around that area, whatnot, you know what I'm saying, for a long time and whatnot, right? And so in Timbuktu, there's library, everything's written in Arabic, right? But what they found out is that there's multitudes of languages that are written in the Arabic. So just like how like Yiddish is like it's Germanic languages, but written in Hebrew script, right? They took stuff like the Yoruba language, the Igbo language, et cetera, and were writing down their histories in Arabic, in Kufic Arabic and whatnot. You see what I'm saying? So our whole history is literally in Timbuktu, written in Arabic and whatnot. So like if we start putting down our rocks and whatnot and start checking out these Islamic sources and not you got Arabic sources, French sources, Spanish sources, and modern times you got German sources and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? The Germans are going hard right now. But at the time, you got Spanish and French sources.
They have the largest Jewish library.
Facts.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you good. Facts. Like they're doing the work, bro. You know what I'm saying? But like, so if we pick up these languages and whatnot, right? And like, so for instance, if our ancestors had no issue. Let me say it like this. If it was our ancestors who were translating this stuff in Arabic, we should have no issue going back to retranslate it. I'm just going to say it like that. We should have no issue going back to like it doesn't make you a Muslim. It doesn't make you non-Israelite to go learn Arabic or et cetera, or Aramaic, et cetera, to go get your information back. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
you know how many people in Africa right now that knows like 3 or 4 languages?
Why is he?
Hold on, there was 2
translators today that can translate whole books.
Are there translators? Yeah. The question is, are they our people? It's because not only so the thing about it is you have to learn the Kufic script specifically, which is a really old script of Arabic and whatnot, right? It's not like the modern and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? So you have to like it's literally like you have to go to
I'm talking about automatic translators like Google Translate. Or what
yeah, you can get the text in
Babylon.
Yeah, I have one.
You got a
Babylon.
You can
just translate the text, but I think more is talking about more or less like something that people should seek to do if they call themselves a person of letters, you know.
Like we should definitely have a few of our scholars on this. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there's like the whole story is written down right now already. It's just in Arabic.
It's in Arabic and it's in somebody's private library.
Spanish, Portuguese, German. It's in every language.
Yeah, facts.
More in the chat, Azov Jones said he actually does that.
You specify that. Are you like you can deal with Kufic Arabic or no? Because if you can deal with Kufic Arabic, you and I need to have a conversation with you. There's a few sources we got to talk about.
Yeah, he's a deep brother. He's shown me some stuff. Definitely.
Yeah, I know he goes in. That's why I'm like, man.
Yeah.
I hear you knocking. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to let you in.
Right.
Hey, more. I'm still working on translating. I'm still working on translating our line to El Yah.
What?
Hey, but you hooking out. I don't know if you're there or not, brother, but like this is what I wanted to work on. Youth is breaking down. Like I know you get into the DNA breakdown and whatnot, right? What I wanted to do is actually try to work on a chart for people to understand migration patterns of certain people that are historically matched up with us, etc., whatnot, and actually break down what their DNA types are. So when people start doing DNA tests and whatnot, think like, oh, I can go back to these areas and these areas and these areas and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Because like there's literally, like I'm saying, people don't recognize that the tribes are literally named by certain sources.
Well, the best thing to do if you're trying to get back connected to like where your people are, like people who you're connected to, who you're sharing DNA with worldwide, the best thing to do is either go take a test at Family Tree DNA or take a test at 23andMe. So if you're a female, I'll probably say I would go to Family Tree DNA. I think that they have the best information for the maternal haplotype. If you're a male, I'll probably just go ahead and do 23andMe. But what I would do is after you take the test, because once you do 23andMe, you're not going to really know anything. All you're going to know is areas, right? All they're going to tell you is you got 20% South Indian, right? Which is just going to give you a location. It's never going to connect you to a tribe, no people or whatever, right? And then it'll give you 5% what Italian, European, or 5% Portuguese, European, right? So you still ain't going to know nothing. All it's going to give you is these regions. So what you want to do is take that raw data from the test that you got and take it to GEDmatch. Now, when you get to GEDmatch and you load up your DNA, they're going to start letting you know what types of the tribes and the people that you're related to. So that's how I ended up finding out being related to Ethiopian Jews and Yemenite Jews and Koine Jews and these different Jews across the nations, and even being related to Igbo, Mendikas, different tribes. They start connecting me to the tribes actually now that I'm connected to, instead of just giving you regions. So that's how you can kind of find out basically what tribes are you connected to in those areas. Are you?
Hey, real quick, I got to share my screen one more time, right? Because I was just looking at this for people and whatnot. And so I'm talking about the Berbers and whatnot. And so there we go. So there's a tribe of people called the Tuareg amongst the Berbers and whatnot. They're a really vast tribe and whatnot, right? And so there's also well known that they had the Israelites and Saracens, etc. amongst them and whatnot, right? And so what's interesting is like, so you got people like Tina Turner, who when she takes her DNA test, part of it comes up as Tuareg and whatnot. You also got people like Morgan Freeman, right? Same thing for him. He took his DNA test, right? And part of it came back as Tuareg and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? This is going to be more and more and more common as the DNA gang gets more specific, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? And so, like I said, this game is about to get real. Like you see what's going on with the Lemba and the other people in Africa and whatnot, in terms of like how the people in Israel got to hit the brakes right now and really slowly investigate certain claims and whatnot. And I'm saying right now in America, where people are on the kick to find out where they come from in their DNA and whatnot, things are about to get real ugly, real ugly for a lot of people, and they're gonna have to hit the brakes with all kind of feet in a second.
Do me a favor. 2 favors. Define ugly, and then
so ugly is this right quick. So in that conversation that Ronald Dalton Jr. had with the Rabbi Harry Rosenberg and the West African Israelite, it basically kind of came down to like, well, who's the original and who's the sojourner, right? Because Harry Rosenberg admitted, like, he was like, well, we converted, we're converts, you know what I'm saying? And then the question was like, well, what about y'all? Because like, again, like, so historically speaking, right? So when the Saracens and the Moors went into Spain, right? That became like the golden era of the Israelites and whatnot. They were coming to that area from all over the world doing their thing. And so after a while of them being there, out of nowhere, they got a letter from the Khazars. Gideon will like this one, you know what I'm saying? They got a letter from the Khazars. And they were like, wait a minute, y'all got a kingdom of Jews out there? They're like, since when? From who? From where? So they sent them back a letter like, okay, like, basically, like, what's the password? What's the handshake, my G? You know what I'm saying? Like, so they send them all kinds of like, do you practice this? Do you practice that? Do you read this? Do you read that? Blah, blah, blah. And the return fire they got back was like, no, we don't know about what you're talking about. They're like, oh, okay.
It was funny. Yeah. What's funny is that when they try to debunk the book, the 13 tribe, they don't know that a majority of that book is coming from that letter and also the response. So, I mean, you're trying to debunk primary documents. So it's crazy.
Yeah, and what you can't debunk is the fact, like there's no one who argues the fact that the majority of the Jewish diaspora were trying to go towards Spain at that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't like, hey, let's go kick it in the Caucasus Mountains. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't the thing at the time. As a matter of fact, the whole reason why the people in the Caucasus Mountains converted, because they were saying, like, we had Christians on one side, we had Muslims on the other side. We decided to pick something in between, right? Well, why did they have to choose? Like, what was going on at the time? Like, you know what I'm saying? What was politically popping off at the time? Right? Like, that's the thing people got to understand.
Genocide.
Go ahead.
Death and genocide.
Facts, but the Israelites in Spain weren't getting dealt with like that. You know what I'm saying? At the time, at that specific time that I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Because there's times when where Arabs come in and they start switching the game up and whatnot. But when the Berbers are running things, it's a different ball game for them. You know what I'm saying? They're second in command in a lot of things up there. You know what I'm saying? And so
right.
so they're living pretty good. Like they're having like their highest level of scholastic endeavors, all them kind of things. You know what I'm saying? So you see the growth of a lot of literature coming from the Israelites at that time period. I mean, like the most famous literature you get from them in history actually comes from that time period where they're underneath the Moors and the Saracens and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So it just is what it is. So like, so when they got that letter from the Khazars, they were like, word? They were trying to like, well, why y'all trying to kick it up there? Y'all ain't trying to come through? What you doing up there? How long have you been there? Who was your patriarch? Where did you come from? Blah blah blah, all them type of things, right?
Right.
Yeah, when they got their answer back, they were like, "Oh, word." They were like, in a Southern colloquial terms, they were like, "Oh, bless their heart." Yes.
Yeah. Because when I look at the term Moor, I see it equally as being an Israelite or a person of the Islamic religion. And one thing like you got to look at is when you're looking at the kingdoms and the caliphates or the people that's ruling in Spain, the Muslims, with each coming kingdom, the Abbasid, the Umayyad, with each of those coming kingdoms, and even with each of the kings within those dynasties, with each king, you have a new court. So if this king favors the Israelite Moors, those people are going to be in the administrative positions, ruling the land with the Muslims, because there were documented times when the Israelites were hand in hand working with the Arab Moors. And then there were times when it was contention and, disagreements. So that's what we got to look at.
They were working with the Berbers, right? It was the Arabs that they had the issue with, that came in with the issue, because the Arabs came through and they were like, you know what? We don't like the fact that the Moors because the Moors are Berbers themselves, right? The Israelites are Berbers, right? So again, it goes back to a Hebrew concept. The Abbasids came through, like the Abbasids, like they have like a Persian kick to them. Okay, they're like, we don't necessarily like this union popping off. You know what I'm saying? So they played this divide and conquer game, right? And that's when everything started to fall. Like the golden era for both people fell down. You know what I'm saying? But like, what's interesting is like, so when the Berbers, when when the Saracens and the Moors are together in Spain. Like, so there's a big a Moorish cathedral in Cordoba, right? It's very well known and whatnot, right? Well, the Israelite Masons literally helped build the foundation for the Moorish cathedral, the Moorish mosque, right? The big one that they have there, right? But then down the street, they also built, like, they have the so-called Jewish quarter where they built their big famous synagogue down there. You know what I'm saying? But they were like, no, when they wrote the Moors, look, man, we would gladly be under you instead of these Christian cats going crazy on us right now. You know what I'm saying? They're like, look, fam, we would rather be under family than under foes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, facts. I mean, the religion of Islam itself, in my opinion, is just a pushback on Roman Catholicism.
Facts, 100%, and that's clear within the text of the Quran and whatnot. 100%.
So more. Let me ask y'all. The guy Yarah and y'all been bringing out that was bringing out his information. What's people's main dispute with his information?
Are you talking about Ozra Equiano?
Yeah, that's the one that was talking about that Yarah was bringing out a little while ago.
Yeah, Yarah, you want to speak to that?
Yeah. The main pushback is that mainly two things: is that is post-colonialism, is post-colonial era. His autobiography, although it's written during the slave trade, the time of the transatlantic slave trade, but it's written after. We see a substantial influx of colonialism in west coast of Africa, and so so that's one of the people's pushbacks is that because with the colonialism we see Catholic infiltration, and we also see we also start to see Christian missionaries. By that time, around the 1700s, we start to see them along with Christian or Catholic missionaries going into those lands and converting people, and bringing with them the story of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, so to speak. So that's people's pushback. Also, they simply take the position where there's no confirmation, because he simply says he's from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria, and simply because he writes about having glimpses of his people and their ancient stories, and how him reading the Bible made him to sort of make these connections of his tribe from when he was taken from slavery, his homeland, and how he sort of began to match that up with the Bible. So their pushback is as well, he had a Bible. So they sort of disagree, they sort of push back on that. Well, if he didn't have a Bible, would he be saying that?
Yeah, so, I see what you're saying. So this was before 1947, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're talking 17.
Okay.
Right?
He doesn't explicitly
okay, I thought so.
He doesn't explicitly name an ancient tribe, so it's just his common knowledge in that time that Igbos are ancient Israelites or descended from ancient Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So he knew that, but the people today don't get it. And then they say that Judah cannot possibly mean Judah. I don't know how they come to that conclusion, but that's one thing that they say. The parrots say that.
Yeah, I have a source, and I have to track it down, that literally the cartographer that actually created that map that everyone looks at, that has the land of Wida on there. He specifically says in his writings and in his record that even though that they were French explorers in that land, that they named it after the people in that land.
Mm-hmm. The cartographer, the person who drew the map,
yes,
said that he named that location after the people in that area. Correct?
Yes, that's what he said. I have to pull that source out. I have it. I know. I guarantee you, I have it. I have to go and dig it and pull it out. But he actually, literally says that they named it after the people that were in that land of what they were calling themselves.
So you can't teach parents like complex information. They're not incapable of learning because they can mimic speech. You know what I mean? But they can't learn complex information like a human. You know what I'm saying? So that's what a lot of these people are. They're just parrots. They're bang against Electro Udiano's information.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I want to address something that Yasharoon put in the chat. He said Morisco equals Spanish Muslim forced or otherwise to convert to Christianity. Maranos equals Spanish Jew forced or otherwise to convert to Christianity. I want to clarify something on that because I see a lot of people making that same statement, and when you start going into the actual sources on the thing, it'll get you confused if you think about it like that, right? So I want to share my screen and just show y'all something right quick in terms of what that actually gets into. So when you get into the etymology of, for instance, Marano, right? Marano literally breaks down that it's a Jew or a Moor that converts or whatnot, right? And so Marano literally comes. It has a concept of like a pejorative meaning, like unclean or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Because at the time when people were making their conversions, they literally forced them to eat pork or have pork hanging up in their windows, et cetera, whatnot. And so, for instance, let me see here. Yeah. The term comes from Spanish, probably literally meaning pig or swine, an expression of contempt from Arabic, muharam. Like haram is like something that you can't do. It's a forbidden thing. So eating of pork is forbidden by Muslim and Jewish religious law. Farahum from haruma was forbidden. So Morisco literally just means Moorish in Spanish. Moresco is how you say it in Italian. Morris is how you say it in Gaelic and whatnot. It literally just means Moorish or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And so it doesn't always mean that they were forced to be Christians or whatnot. Were there Moriscos that practiced Christianity? Yes. Were some that forced to convert? Yes. But they were ultimately kicked out, just like the Jews were, like under the same concept of like convert to this or get kicked out, right? So that this is why I wanted to make that distinction on the outset, that there were people who came over from Yemen and from Aksum that had their Nazarene messianic concepts already, even living amongst the people who were Torah only, etc., whatnot, or amongst the people who were dealing with the Quran or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So yes, there were people forced to convert, but at one point, like they were told to get the hell on anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Boy,
Go ahead.
That's very interesting what you said, man, because I remember, man, back like in 2007, I was working at a restaurant. There was a lot of like Mexicans and people like that, and they was calling me Moreno. When I first went up north and heard Spanish, I was like literally like, damn, because I never heard it before. So they would call me Moreno, and I was going to school also, and I was, cool with this older Indian Native American guy. And I asked him, what does Moreno mean? He told me it means pig. Now, before you say something, he said, man, that means pig, and I'm like, damn, they call it. So when I went back to work, I confronted them about it. And I was kind of aggressive with how I was confronted. And they were like, no, man, no. They were like, no, man, we're not calling you a pig. We're calling you black.
Yeah.
And I will always tell that story like that. Like the Indian guy like tried to cross me out saying they called me a pig, but you saying he was actually correct.
Well, okay, Marano. If they called you Marano, they're calling you a pig, right? But Moreno, that's so you and I, they would call
Okay,
Moreno
okay.
because we have
Yeah.
a certain skin tone that's like
You got to be kidding. So you telling me Marano in Spanish means pig?
Marano with the Marano, right? Not Moreno. Moreno has as a skin tone. It's a.
That's what I just said. So that's amazing that those words are those so closely related.
Or so similar, yeah.
Because I thought when he asked the Native American guy, I thought he was telling him what it means in his language, in the Native American language. But
it's almost like schematic. It's like schematically he threw me in a cross, like, you know.
Yeah. You know what's cool about that? Like, so literally, so when they literally forced us to eat pork, we literally, we tried to make like a clean version of a pig, right? So the most expensive pork in the world is called jamón ibérico from the Iberian Peninsula and whatnot, right? And so what that is it's pork that's raised on olives and on greenery, and it's finished off on like on fruit and I think when acorns or something like that, right? You know what I'm saying? But it's a pig that eats that chews the cud, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they eat it to this day, and it's like literally the most expensive pork in the world. But it's something that was created by the people who were forced to convert, etc. They're like, damn, if we're gonna eat the pork, we're gonna do our best to make it kosher. You know what I'm saying?
That ain't what our ancestors did. They was starved to death before they did that.
I'm not mad at you, but at the same point in time,
I mean, our famous ancestors.
They got kosher pigs now. They eat kosher pigs now.
yeah, like, you know, just normal people, I guess, they ate pig constantly, like the pork chop pasta. You know what I mean? So
wow,
that's always going to happen, but they're not going to be the famous people in our family.
Yes and no, because like some of these people were definitely on some sellout stuff, but when you historically get into it, there's groups of converts on both sides that basically are trying to like subvert the Christian thing. You know what I'm saying? Which is why people are getting expelled in different waves and different eras and whatnot. So like there were some people like biting the bullet, so to speak, so they could keep the war popping off. You know what I'm saying? Because what we don't understand is that there was
explosions. Are you familiar with the Jewisher explosions? Like
the multitude of them
things happen, huh?
The multitude of them, yeah.
Why? Yeah. Well, so I heard it happened through market manipulation and greed and all that good stuff, and they just would get kicked out because of their greed and market manipulation.
So
tank societies and stuff, like the rumor about George Soros tanking economies.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an ancient tradition in the Jewish community. I'm trying to figure out if this is reality based on your studies of the explosions of the Jewishers.
So in certain time periods, I can't speak to that because there's certain aspects of that are true. But when it comes to like the Spanish and Portuguese expulsions, what was popping off at the time is that so you had four groups of people. You had the Jews, the Marranos. I'll say the Moriscos just to let you know that they were like Moorish and whatnot. And then you had the Mudahars. The Mudahars were Muslims who were living in the hills of Spain and Portugal who were fighting a straight guerrilla style war and whatnot, right? And so it was seen as though like the Moriscos and the Jews and Manaus and whatnot, they're like the Christians, like we don't know if we can trust you because we think you're working with them and whatnot. And that's exactly what was popping off. You know what I'm saying? And so basically they were grouped up from Morocco. The rulers of Morocco were supporting the people in the hills and whatnot, right? But they were also trying to find other nations at the time to go against Spain. Like Spain was emerging as like the world power at this juncture, right? And they are literally like man, when they knock down the Moors, the Spain takes over the waters and takes over the world for real. And
what,
so like
what years are we talking about there?
So we're going to talk about the expulsions and whatnot. Like, so starting post 1542 with the papal bulls and whatnot, and then going into the expulsions of 1491 and 1492. After that, Spain starts picking.
1452 was the papal bull, and then they started gaining in power, and then around 1542.
No. Yeah, go ahead. I was saying. Go ahead. I was saying. My fault. I was saying after the expulsions of the Jews in 1491 in
Spain.
Yeah, and then there was also the expulsion of the Moriscos in 15. I forgot the year exactly, but it's the 1500s or whatnot.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to be super specific. I'm trying to figure out, because you said they were emerging to be the world power and took over the waters after they took over the Moors and the Moronitas and all that. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out what time frame that was. 1600, 1700?
Yes, we were talking 1500s or 1600s at that time, right? It's like, so they at that juncture, they sell all the way to like the Philippines and whatnot. You see what I'm saying? And start doing work over there. So like, I try to explain this to people. The Spanish hit the East Coast and West Coast before most people before most Europeans hit the East Coast of America. Like,
and so there clearly had to be people fighting against that effort of them taking over the Moors, the Berbers, and the Saracens, but they were mostly Africans, and so all the European powers were allied with that effort.
No. A matter of fact, a lot of European powers were trying to quell the effort because, like, Spain was doing like, so. For instance, like what got the Moriscos kicked out of Spain was the fact that the Moroccans, the Moors, literally signed a treaty with the Dutch, right? And the Dutch, like, in they were like, yeah, we think y'all might team up with the Dutch to come kick us out, so y'all got to get kicked out too. You know what I'm saying? It people don't even recognize this, right? Like, so the Moors literally had treaties, like they were about to sign with the Queen of England at the time, Queen Elizabeth, I believe, to where she was they were going to try to kick the Spaniards out of the Caribbean. They were going to put Moors on English ships, sail them to the Caribbean, and kick the Spanish the hell out, and then split the Americas in between the Moors and the English. But
so
go ahead.
Could that be reasoning why they signed a treaty? Because they lost the war?
Which treaty are you talking about?
Peace and Friendship. 1776.
The one with Morocco and America?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in 1786, 1787. Like, so they're continually trying.
That would lead credence to they're not traitors. If they lost the war and had to survive by signing a treaty.
Well, so okay, so just to be clear, like, so they're like in Morocco, Morocco literally opened up the trade ports of the world to America in December of 1777. Morocco is the first country to recognize America's sovereignty as a nation, right? And so what they do is they literally send word around the Islamic world, all the way over even into the Philippines and whatnot. I say, y'all go trade with the Americans now, because the Europeans weren't trading with the Americans. You see what I'm saying?
Oh man, that's vital information.
As a matter of fact, the reason why the English signed treaties with the Moroccans is because they were like, man, we want access to your ports because we can't compete with Spain. You know what I'm saying? Like, Spain's coming up and we're trying to come up too.
You see how economics had to be weaved into the discussion, because that's how all these things are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
That's the motivation behind all those movements and stuff.
Right. The Moors were still powerful enough to the point to where they're like, yeah, man, yeah, you got to like in that treaty, like, if our people wash up on your shores, you got to let them go. Hence, you got 3 Israelites saying, we're rocking with the Moors. Don't call us Negroes. You know what I'm saying? They're that powerful.
What type of influence does that country have in regards to, in comparison to what you're describing in that time frame, late 1700s?
In terms of
they
now,
were the first to recognize America's sovereignty and told the rest of the Islamic world that they need to deal with America in trade, catapulting them into power, great power. And then I suppose that's why they have a certain level of respect for that whole history.
As a matter of fact, you can go into the Treaty of Tripoli that they signed, I believe, in 1796. I might be off on that date a little bit, but it literally says that America is not a Christian nation, and that they have no enmity with the Islamic religion or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And so that's one of the major reasons that they were like. So if people go into the history of America, whatnot, like the founders, they were like mostly, or the people who founded the nation and signed the Declaration of Independence and Constitution and whatnot, they were mostly like deists and whatnot. They weren't like pro Christian, pro this. They were more on some like, hey, religious freedom. Like they were like, you got Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin. So I'm like, yeah, let's be cool with like letting Muslims become president and all them kind of things at one point. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't part of what is known as Christendom, right? They weren't under the Pope. You know what I'm saying? And so it was behooving upon Morocco to try to make as many alliances as they could with people who weren't aligned with the Pope. As a matter of fact, you can go back to the 1200s, right? It's and you can see that there's a king of England who tries to go make alliance with the Moors because he pissed off the Pope, and he's like, okay, the Moors are the only people that can help me out now. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I think we should make alliances before we piss somebody off.
I don't disagree.
Well, we don't already pissed off the Amalekites, but they're already useless anyway. They already have an infinite debt going on anyway, right now. So, all these other alliances, I think we should focus on that. I'm just learning, trying to, develop strategies. Understand?
I'm with it.
To learn the past in order to develop the future.
I'm with it. Like so historically, look at the links that we did make, right? So that's why I stress the free sundry Moors like so much, is because you literally had Moors and Israelites linked to the point where like an Israelite could wash up on the shores of America and claim to be a Moor, and it was cool. You're like, no, okay, you're not a Negro then. All right, straight. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a big deal.
Yeah, free man his whole life. Yeah,
that's a big deal. That's what I'm saying. It's the bottom line. It's just time to bury the ancient hatreds and start building on some stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I've been talking for a minute. I'm about to go on mute and let y'all get it in.
All right, now I guess that goes back to you, Elder.
Yeah, shalom, man. Hey, listen, man, that's some powerful information and great dialogue between family. We're approaching on a 3-hour mark on this. We started around 8:30, so I'm gonna get ready to close this out. We can continue our conversation.
Do me a favor.
Yes, sir.
The family seal and invite females into the family.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. What I wanted to do is, I'm gonna drop that family seal, but I want you to brothers, we gotta approve that first, so we can all be on one accord with it. Then I'm gonna drop that, and then we're gonna open it up. We're gonna talk about nation building in that way, where we're gonna be including our sisters, and just as we been building upon, like I really feel like just as we've been building, the war machine. We have some Torah only, we have some Messianics, and more brought this out earlier. We've always lived together. We've always been, we came over here together. Messianic believers and Torah believers, or Tanakh believers. And again, even our Muslim brothers, like, listen, I'm saying, and when I say this, I want people to clearly understand what I'm saying. If you haven't picked up on anything else tonight, and what we're talking about, Israelites and Black Israelites in Africa, we need to understand that a lot of our information and a lot of our history is held by our Muslim brothers. Like this is information we have to tap into. This is information we a lot of us need their help in deciphering and getting, and even being able to talk about who we are as a people fully. I want people to open that understanding about it. Is we're not talking about faith and belief and dogma, but we're talking about information, and we have to have a dialogue with one another in order to get the proper information and get the correct information, so that we can solidify and find who we are and understand who we are. And so I wanted, I want to sort of maintain that element. I'm not really worried about the detractors and what they say, and how do you guys deal with Muslims and this and that. Like that's remedial talk. It's remedial talk in the scope of what we understand that's coming. So yeah, playing, we're definitely going to do that. I'm going to drop this, but I need you brothers to give your thumbs up and your thumbs down in the way we're going to be doing that, and then we're going to be inviting sisters. I already have put out some invites to some sisters, so they're just waiting on what we say. So I'm going to present them to you guys as well, but then we can then open it up to people that want to be involved, at least in moving forward and understanding what community is, and let them know that they have a safe haven among those in the war machine. So, for the lack of I don't want to say that, I won't say camp, but in the community that we're striving to build. So, so we'll definitely get to that. I wanted to do a bigger, and I'm going to do a big announcement on that. But Claim, I appreciate that, because people need to know that we definitely appreciate the knowledge and the wisdom that our sisters have. I already had you can reach out to a sister who's going to be doing some lessons for us. Sister Shante, if you guys know her, she's on the Big Talk Radio a lot. She has her own show, so she's going to be doing some lessons with us and for us, speaking to the women and giving her perspective. Sister Sheikah was on the panel with us the other day. She's also is going to be frequenting us in speaking of things about women's issues, and specifically how women are understood in the scripture, and how they should be looking at and what does a true Israelite faith community looks like, now and in the future to come, what that should look like. So we're opening, we're receiving our sisters, with extended hands and open arms, so that we can further build. So but definitely we're gonna do that. So we're looking forward us to drop that seal. I'm trying to put a whole lot of other media stuff together and graphic stuff together, like intro for the shows and different things that we do, so we can take it up a level. We're going to be trying to do shows and lessons weekly, if not daily. We're going to be presenting something on the channel, and I said to you brothers, even if it's just 15 minutes, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes of a lesson you have, or something that you're reading, Nazi Madan is going to be going into his library of information and pulling out different things. And so, that's just, to the war machine. I talked to Yarah Yahoo. He's going to do something in regards to understand the language as we read it in the biblical text, in the Tanakh. He's going to be doing lessons on that as well. So look for it, man. We're trying to get pertinent information. And then I know Claim is working on some big projects in regards to some new recent information. Like, share, subscribe to the Orthodox More as well on his channel. He's always has great lessons, great teachings, great conversations. We appreciate the brother building with us. So definitely do that. Like, share, subscribe to your Howard War Machine. Again, like, we're going to be trying to do some different and innovative things, especially with this media platform and outside of it. So subscribe to Elder Yarah. Pretty much what you see here, you'll see on my channel, but I'll have some different things on there as well. And so in closing out, I want you brothers to go ahead. We're about 4 minutes over the time, but I want to close this out because we're right at that 3-hour mark. So, man, you brothers go around the panel if you guys want to say anything. This is just our preliminary into the lesson. Brother General Gideon is going to be, Israel is going to be bringing out tomorrow on the Yahweh War Machine channel. Tomorrow, I think we're going to be streaming on the Yahweh War Machine channel. I think we're going to be streaming on SVDL Live as well simultaneously. But check in with us on tomorrow evening. Gideon is going to go, if you like this, teaching this lesson. Gideon Israel is going to be going even more further in depth on that tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to close out, with you brothers going around the panel. Last words.
Accept the facts of your inheritance or get rolled over. We done warned you too many times. You understand? And all you reparation scoffers, I done won that debate 1,000 times over. And Asheville was the first city to do it. The states are gonna follow. There's universities that's already done it. California's looking at it. Stop it. Just leave it alone. Help the cause. Don't stop banging against it.
Con. I just want to say, this is a great show, man. Shalom to all my brethren. Powerful information brought forth, and we just gonna keep this continuing, Most High willing. Shalom.
I hear you're looking for an
Shalom, man. I'm just gonna say, good show, man. Great information, man. I pretty much sat back and listened and was just soaking up some stuff. So I got some stuff to y'all gave me some things to look into and study up on. Good bill, man. You know what I'm saying? All praise to the Most High. Tanks on the ground. Shalom to y'all, brothers.
All praise to the Most High. Tanks on the ground.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, more. I was calling your name.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the War Machine for letting me come through and build with y'all. You know what I'm saying? Stay tuned in the future because I will be doing. I'm looking to do a 3 or 4 part series with Dana Marnici that ethnobiographer I was telling you about to try to break down those migration patterns and whatnot. So I'll definitely let y'all know when that happens and whatnot, and see if I can't even maybe arrange some dialogues and whatnot. But yeah. I'm always down for this conversation right here. You know what I'm saying? This is an intriguing one, and I definitely appreciate y'all letting me come through and build on it, man. Shalom, family. All praise to the Most High.
Shalom, all praise to the Most High, man. Thank you, more for coming in and sharing your knowledge with us as well as always. Yehukanan, Captain Yehukanan, are you still on with us, family?
Yeah, I'm still on, man. Hey, I appreciate it, y'all, for letting me on. You said when are you finna go back into this lesson? You said
tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m.
Be the last day, or you got like a few more days that you're gonna do this?
I mean, we have this information. I didn't even go into. I only went until about a third of the information that I had. So we're going to continue this. But Gideon's going in tomorrow with his information, and I believe Yashar is going to be with him. So, I mean, we can extend this out as long as you need. So, if you want to have this, if we want to get into this,
you have to get thing. When I get the results in, because what is for the maternal to show up, and then once they give me the maternal, it'll actually show me all the places where the different mitochondrial DNA shows up at. Now, as far as the migrations go, they just give you a real vague migration as far as certain with the haplogroups. They don't really let go down because you got your hablo groups and you got your sub hablo groups. So your sub hablo groups, they kind of traveled different ways. So a hablo group could have traveled 5 or 6 different ways, but the only thing is with family tree, they only show just the one main uh, hablo group migration. They don't get deep with it. But I just want to get down to I want to show the where the mitochondria was at. But yeah, I do the lesson. I can always come back and add to it later when the results come in.
See, that's why I need to get with you, Hukanah, because like even with that main migration concept you're talking about, right? It's not showing all of them. Like, so there's in any good theory, any good concept will have like a falsification test you can put in on it, right? You know what I'm saying? And so this is what I was talking about with the migration patterns I want to get with you on, and the names of the people who are migrating and whatnot is the fact. Like, so basically, the sources are already saying that these migrations happen, so the DNA should follow, should map the same migration that they're talking about, because it's not one group of people talking about these migrations. It's multiple people talking about these migrations. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
if the main migration pattern shows up enough with everybody, it will still show the basic routes. You know what I'm saying? That have already been declared by the historians.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We'll get together on it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Shalom to everybody.
Shalom. I
Shalom,
think Commander General Yarah, you with us? That means he's not with us right now, but we appreciate his presence, his input earlier. He's going to be with us tomorrow evening, bringing out more of this information. And we're just going to continue bringing the information out. So, I mean, this is, as you'll see, this is to combat those who clearly say that we really have no presence, or we have an insignificant presence, or there's really no trace of us in Africa. But I think we've clearly showed that tonight. We're going to continue to build on this subject and this topic, most high willing. And again, man, Garfield, MBK, Rob, like, hey, look, y'all calling for the smoke. We're dealing with the information. So when the smoke clears, you know what I'm saying? Let the information stand. Y'all a war machine. We're here. You know what I'm saying? So, man, all praise to the Most High. To Big O, we appreciate you, fam, in the chat. Yasharan, we appreciate you, family. One Nails One, we appreciate you as well. Who else we have? Ason Jones. What can we say, fam? We definitely gonna let you know when we getting back on this topic, because I definitely appreciate your information. Definitely want you to join us. Sister Nails, hey, listen. I know you got information. I know you have questions. Listen, let's build. Dex T Israel, all praises to the Most High, fam. We appreciate your support as always. I'm gonna have to get that brother a wrench. I think he got a wrench on everybody's platform, but definitely we gonna be doing more shows. Like I said, premiering daily or live. We'll be doing some shows, live shows, definitely weekly. Again, I'm putting in the chat. We'll put it in the chat for anyone, because I'll be having this question, so I just said I'm going to do it for anyone that has any interest. We are a think tank. We try to really deal with apologetics, Israelite apologetics, but as you see, we also have other brothers as more who deals in apologetics and a myriad of other apologetics, for lack of a better term, in faith in regards to studies and into to Islam and the Moorish understanding, and how all of this coalesces together as far as information is concerned, as well as faith. So, like, we're here for information. We're here for information. Again, we definitely hone up at the banner of the Most High. But listen, if you're interested in getting with the Yahweh War Machine, send us an email, and let's talk, let's build. We need to, we need to start building as a nation of people. So like I said, so again, all praise to Yahweh for allowing us to come on and bringing this lesson to you. All praise to His Son, Yahweh Shah, for allowing us the opportunity to be found with grace to do the lesson. So again, peace, shalom. Everybody be safe. Be blessed.
Shalom.
Shalom.